Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another evening of exciting racing action in the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship Season 11 as brought to you on the premier SimRacing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. That's right, we're back once again. Thursday has come around as quick as that, and as we continue to make our way towards the conclusion of what has been an absolutely epic season so far, we have made our way to Australia for round 7 of 10. We're here at the Ultimate Street Circuit, one that has withstood the test of time and in a way is one of the most unconventional circuits in the world when you consider how it's laid out, because we are here in none other than New South Wales, the Australian state, for the Mount Panorama circuit. More commonly referred to as Bathurst in reference to the local city, it is a circuit which spans the best part of 3.86 miles and is made up of public roads by day. However, on race day, those roads are closed and the businesses that surround the circuit become inaccessible, and it becomes one of the most venerable pieces of racing surface that you'll see around the globe. It's all based on Mount Panorama, or Mount Wooroloo, depending on how you prefer to name it, a mountain which stands tall, and from the lowest point of the circuit all the way to the highest point, it is the best part of 150 metres or so. And as our drivers make their way up, over and down from the mountain, they're going to find themselves needing to prove that they are the king of the mountain in their respective racing class today, as we bring you all the racing action from circuit side here in Split A. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you to this live broadcast of the circuit side as you tune in tonight on the one and only place you can catch all this racing action on a weekly basis, and that is of course at none other than the SimRacing International YouTube channel. Indeed, go to youtube.com and search for SimRacing International or SRI, and you can be tuning in there and catching all the racing action from this series and all our other series. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, why not do so today, so that way you never miss a live broadcast. In the commentary booth, you have myself. My name is Paul Walsh, and I'll bring you all your racing action from Split A, which you're catching. And do keep in mind, of course, as always, we have 2 broadcasts going on in parallel, because this is a 2-split series, whereby in Split A, you'll be seeing the elite and pro drivers. Meanwhile, in Split B, the parallel broadcast that's going, that is currently ongoing, we have the combination pair of none other than the ever reliable and enthusiastic Chaz Draycott, and also the ever well endowed with knowledge, Dara Thacker, and you can catch all the racing action with them with regards to Premier and the Evo classes. But as we come into this round of racing, well, I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a round that is not going to be for the faint-hearted, because this is a circuit which requires our drivers to negotiate a very narrow racing surface. Overtaking around here is going to be confined to the straights, and we'll tell you all about that and plenty more as we make our way back to circuit side in due time. But first, of course, we need to give you a recap of the story so far after 6 rounds of racing. And do keep in mind, of course, that last time out at VIR, well, everything seemed to be shaken up for the majority of drivers, apart from a couple of particular names. And without further ado, let's retell the story after round number 6. So as we look to our calendar firstly, as we can see, today is the 19th of February, it is round 7 and the skies are clear. They are sunny with a degree of cloud. We have 2 30-minute sprint races today. Indeed, we switched from our feature round format, that has been our format for the last 2 rounds, and we've gone back to our 2 30-minute sprint race round setup, albeit after this one we've only got 1 more set of sprint races to come, and that is going to be in the mixed weather race at Mazzano Grand Prix circuit on the 5th of March in round number 9. But along the way there, of course, we will be going to Germany next time out for the Nürburgring Grosser Preisstrecke, where our drivers will be racing under sunny skies for 60 minutes of a single race. But where were we last time out? We were at VIR, or the Virginia International Raceway, and completing our time in the US of A for this season. And what we got to see there, well, was absolutely incredible racing. Firstly, whilst we had spotty rain on the forecast, when it did rain, it was absolutely torrential rain. And what that meant was we had a waterlogged circuit. It meant that qualifying, you had to get your lap in within the opening 15 to 20 minutes in order to be able to get a valid lap, given the fact it was dry then, and when the rain arrived, it never went away or dried up enough for our drivers to be able to go back to slicks. So suddenly that completely shook up the qualifying standings. And when we did go racing, it was an absolutely drenched circuit that never dried out. Indeed, we saw plenty of spins and moments where it all went wrong for drivers, but there was one driver at the very front of the field who once again found himself leading the way in elite and overall. And well, you guessed his name right if you said Tseard Ploeg, because he absolutely delivered. However, whilst he did take the victory in the end, and with it his 4th win of the season, he was kept honest at the front of the field, because Ryan Nickerson for Split Straight Esports absolutely surprised everybody with an incredible run to be right towards the front of the field in qualifying. And then over the course of the race, after he found his form and the circuit dried up a little bit compared to the initial wet conditions, we saw him and Ploeg exchanging best laps in the race time and time again. It was almost as if they were trading shares on the stock market floor. However, as the race went on and we saw Nickerson pushing harder and harder, unfortunately he pushed too hard and made a critical mistake in what looked to be dead set for second and a chance at an outside win when in the end it fell to third place. And Benedictus Sinkevicius was able to hold on right at the end to make it a Vulcan Motorsports 1-2 in the elite class, and Sinkevicius bringing on home a return to the podium and Ploeg bringing home that win, and you'll see how that's shaking up things in the team's championship very shortly. But for Nickerson, of course, it was an upsetting day for him because whilst he was very happy to finish on the podium, he was also kicking himself for the fact that he had thrown away that chance to be second, if not tried to chase Ploeg down in the late stages. But that was the elite class story, and that was one side of the coin. On the other, the pro class story. Now, what exactly happened there? Well, we had a first win of the season for Menno Bloem, but when you looked at qualifying, you probably would have thought to yourself, there's no way the SimRacing Team Lowlands driver is going to win the race from 8th on the grid after he had a relatively consistent qualifying session, but the theme of his season really has been qualified towards the back end of the top 10 and finish inside the top 10. However, as the race unfolded, there were issues, there were blights, there were moments going wrong for so many other drivers, and the only one who managed not to make a mistake, and when he left the circuit, it wasn't because he'd gone to the grass by accident. He needed to go to the grass to avoid his wayward teammate Mark de Vries. It was none other than Menno Bloem, who in the end made 0 mistakes and was able to bring home that first win of the season. And talking about some of the big events, Carl Roy having a huge spin on lap number 2 from what was the top 3 of the race at turn number 16. We also got to see Villa Katona having multiple trips to the grass there, exploring rallycross in the end compared to the tarmac. And we also got to see perhaps the biggest heartbreak of them all, which was Fortis Katios leading the race in a dominant fashion, much like what his teammate Ryan Nickerson was trying to do in the elite class, and then suddenly a technical retirement for him only, 15 minutes into the race. And we also did see from the podium positions early on the race, Nicholas Carlson pick up a drive-through penalty as well, and it seems as though all the stars align for Menno Bloem. Can he make it back-to-back wins today? Can he prove that even in sunshine, he's able to dine on the points just as much as he is in the wet? Well, that's what we're here to find out, because it is time for round number 7. But as we make our way through today on the 19th of February, how do the standings stand then after 6 rounds of racing? And as we can see, look into the Elite Drivers' Championship standings. Well, Tseard Ploeg is the man who leads the way on 485 points. He is almost 140 points clear at the very top. To be precise, 139 points clear. However, do keep in mind, he will not be on the grid today. He is currently skiing. So whilst our drivers are going up and down slope in the Australian sunshine, he's going to be up and down slope in snow. But, however, will it be a snowfall for his rivals in terms of the points they're able to achieve? Because keeping in mind, Ploeg does have the dropped points from Daytona. And well, this is going to be now a 0-point round of 2 races. Therefore, for Ploeg, he will have that vulnerability of the weak scores he had in the US of A back in round number 2, and that's what his rivals need to capitalise on. First and foremost, to try and do so will be Lewis Kenyon. However, it didn't go quite right at VIR with that 7th place finish in the end, and therefore he knows he's got work to do. Hayden at Miller the same, a non-finish when it all went very backwards for him in the early stage of the race. He never could quite recover, unfortunately, and what it's meant now, with regards to those mistakes, he's got to try and make amends for them today. William Humphrey, a non-finish for him. The Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing driver really struggling in those wet conditions, so it all fell apart when it was looking to be going in the wrong direction by default after his qualifying session. And Ryan Nickerson sits in 5th place there, the split track esports driver, and he really is the man to keep your eyes out for right now, because if he can make it another top 5 or another podium, he could be leaping his way into the top 4 come the end of today. But we can see those gaps there started to become prominent. From Ploeg to Kenyon, 139 points. From Kenyon to Miller, meanwhile, the best part of 26 points, and it's a further 24 points back to William Humphrey, and then we do have an increased gap there to Nickerson of the best part of none other than what is 49 points. But things tighten up once again once you get to your 5th place man, because behind him, another non-finisher, Milton Tomlinson Dennis. It really has been a frustrating middle portion of the season so far for him, because in the last 4 races he's had 3 DNFs, and the World of Racing STR Esports Trial will be hoping that today can be a better day on 226 points, because if not, Benedictus Sinkevicius, with that 2nd place finish last time out, he has leapt his way back into 7th there for Vulcan Motorsports. He's on 218, just ahead of Tim Modi by the best part there of 61 points, and the sim coach driver there bringing home one of his best performances of the season last time. In fact, his very best performance was 6th place finish there for sim coach, being one of the more consistent drivers in the wet weather. But from his Porsche 9 and 2, we then see Ime Hesselar a further 3 points behind, a non-finish for him, relegated him to 9th, but he's still ahead of Mark Hutchinson just about, who is on 148 points, and well, last time for Hutchinson, he wasn't on the grid, and therefore he does consider now his VIR round to be his drop score round. Dan Edvardsen for Relentless Racing, he's joined the grid midway through the season, and we're sitting in 11th there for Relentless Racing with only 2 races attended so far, but to be fair, he's scoring very well with a 3rd and a 4th respectively, and he's ahead of Jack Wyborn by 12 points there, who rounds off your top 12, albeit it was a non-finish for the Ferrari driver at VIR. But if that's how things stand in the elite top 12, what about in the pro class by comparison? Well, here we can see in the pros, it's Rhys Saunders who leads the way for Altitude 3M Esports. It was a 9th place finish last time out. He had a terrible day in the office. In qualifying, he struggled to set a good time before the rain came, and then in the race he just could not progress. The Ford Mustang offering him no confidence in the wet conditions, and indeed the front engine rear drive machines such as the Ford Mustang, the BMWs and also the Mercedes all struggling, whereas their mid-engine rear drive and rear engine rear drive counterparts seem to be much more comfortable. But still, with that score, it does mean that he has held on to a healthy lead over Mikey Story, and Mikey Story has been able to bring the gap down to a degree after what was a 2nd place finish there, and the gap now standing a grand total of 60 points. From him, it's then a further 29 back to Fotis Katios, and with that non-finish, what looked to be a golden chance to really close the gap back to Saunders, it has now relegated him back into 3rd, and the Greek driver knows for Split Strat Esports today has got to be his day, because if he doesn't get it right here, then suddenly Rhys Saunders will be able to pull away further, and Mikey Story may be able to do the same again, and on top of that, even if Story does struggle and Saunders is able to beat Katios, then we might be starting to see this Pro Championship devolve into a battle for 2nd as Saunders is able to creep away to the crown. Villa Katonen, keep your eyes out for him as well. Now, we are hearing he's not feeling 100% today. He has been feeling quite ill all week so far, but he is here for Beowulf Racing Team, but he's going to be trying to take it as easy as possible after what was a very difficult day in the office for him at VIR, where things continue to go backwards, and in the end, struggling to finish inside the top 20. On 342 points right now, he's got to watch out for the man who's moved into 5th. He's leapt his way all the way from the bottom end of the top 10 into the top 5. It's SimRacing Team Lowlands' Menno Blom, who with that infamous win, well now, can he add to it and continue to build some momentum? Because if not, Wesley Van Rens will be right behind him, and right now only 18 points adrift. And then we do have Nathan Anstis in 7th place there with his non-finish really hurting his momentum. Nicholas Carlson for Beowulf Racing Team, the 2nd member of the Beowulf Racing Team in the pro class. What could it have been if he did not have that drive-through penalty? Could he have perhaps even taken the win at VIR and therefore moved himself into the top 5? Well, that's always going to be a what-if question. In the end, he had to settle for 4th, and he's ahead of Stephen Donnelly, who unfortunately we won't be seeing on the grid today for JSD Motorsports, and that is due to a shoulder injury, which he is currently nursing, and we wish him all the best on his recovery. But from his 236 points, it's then a further 3 to Jamie Bardwell, and he's in 10th, ahead of Mark Johnson, who's in 11th on 214 points, and then Liam Fraser completes that top 12. And to be fair to Liam Fraser, even his Mercedes, he was a bit of a madman in the wet. He tried to go for some moves that many would say would not be on in dry conditions, let alone the wet, and he tried to pull them off, but even he kept us guessing as to when he was going to go all in versus when play it safe. But that's what we love about Liam Fraser. He really is one of those do or die drivers, and you cannot live without them for Moonshiners Racing Club. And his top 5, well, then that moves it to 201 points, and he does hold on to his spot inside the top 12. But if that's how the Drivers' Championship stand, what about your team standings? And as we can see here, the Team's Championship, well, VIR has served to achieve 2 things. Firstly, the top 2 are breaking away. Vulcan and Fasters by Glass Tech Racing are only 11 points ahead of Dexterous Motorsports Kumar, but they are close together and they have broken away as a pair from the rest of the field. And when you consider that 3rd through to 12th right now are separated by only 112 points, it really goes to show you firstly that VIR has done a huge amount of damage to some teams' championships as it has done a lot of good to others, and also the fact right now the hunt to be inside that top 5 at the end of the season is well and truly still on. And at any moment, should one of our top 2 teams have difficulty, they may just relegate themselves down the order towards the bottom end of the top 5, and before you know it, we could see the battle for the championship win all open up once again. But the stories of the top 2, Vulcan Motorsport saw their lead reduced, but they're just holding on, and Dexterous Motorsports Kumar are closing the gap, particularly thanks to Mikey Story's brilliant performance in the pro class, and they now have that perfect opportunity today to try and seize the lead. Meanwhile, leaping all the way to 3rd from what was 10th after a 1-2 in the elite class, the perfect performance and the perfect point score, Vulcan Motorsports won there, and Sinkevicius and Ploeg will be very grateful for that, but Sinkevicius will have the pressure on him today to try and make it a win as a minimum to enable him to hold on to their spot inside the top 5. GPX SimSport Onyx, they've moved from 6th to 4th. They had a good time in the wet, particularly in Split B. They're ahead of Vulcan Motorsports 2 now, who've fallen from 3rd to 5th after their nightmare round, with low finishing positions plus non-finishes really cost them dear, and they're ahead of Moonshiners Racing Club by only 5 points. The MRC team, they've moved from 7th to 6th. They've had mixed form in the wet, but Liam Fraser in particular was the one who really gave them the big point score. MJK Sim Racing sit in 7th there, and right now they continue to be a staple of this top 10. how they've fallen from 4th to 7th after difficulties in Split B last week, but they're ahead of Axis Sport Z by the best part there of none other than 3 points, who've made the way from 9th to 8th. A slight improvement for them, as it has also been a slight improvement for Darkwing Racing, who have broken their way into the top 10 for the second time this season, now up to 9th. And right now the combination of Hammond, Jones and Rhodes, we're hoping that today can see them move forward rather than backwards, because they're only 1 point behind 8th and they're only 5 points ahead of 10th. And Altitude 3M Esports right now are at a major risk of falling outside the top 10 today, and should they do so, will only at the best part of what is 18 points behind them is none other than Splitstrat Esports, who've fallen outside the top 10 for the first time this season, and they'll be looking to recover. And we also do have behind them none other than Beowulf Racing Team and Phoenix Racing as well. It is close between them. Indeed, it's close right now from 3rd all the way to 12th, and it is also incredibly close right at the top between our top 2. We have a team's championship that definitely is looking fiery hot. As things heat up in the championships, well, let's talk a little bit about our circuit for today, because as we come to the end of the summer season in Australia, it's the perfect time to go racing at this circuit. It is, of course, the Bathurst circuit, as it's known colloquially, or Mount Panorama Raceway. We're racing at the full course, the one and only layout available of this circuit, and located near the city from which it takes its name in the Australian state of New South Wales. It is 3.86 miles in length, or 6.21 kilometres, depending on your preference of units. The one thing that stays the same, regardless of the units, is the number of quarters. 23 of them, the vast majority situated on the mountain, which begins at turn number 3 at the cutting and concludes at Forest Elbow at turn number 18. And a big thank you to iRacing.com, not just their brilliant simulator, but also the absolutely fantastic track maps that come with it. Now, as the drivers make the way down the start-finish straight, it's a short stretch. They'll head in towards Hell Corner at turn number 1, and as they exit out of there, it'll be full throttle all the way up the mountain straight and towards Griffin's Bend of turn number 2. And there it's about abusing the camber of the road to carry as much speed as possible and continue that ascent until you get to the cutting at turns 3 and 4. There it's early on the brakes and the circuit narrows down very quickly, and that's the last overtaking opportunity at the starter lap before they go over the mountain. As they do, it's then through the blind right-handers of Quarry Bend in towards the quadruple left-hander of turns 7, 8, 9 and 10, which completes with turn number 10 at Maphilamy Park, and then they'll make their way over the skyline, the highest point of the circuit, and where you'll see into the skyline, going from a night-to-day transition, such as the 12 hours of Bathurst in real life last weekend. And of course, we do have the iRacing equivalent of it this coming weekend. It's no coincidence we're racing at Bathurst just before the big iRacing special event. And as our drivers then make their way down from the skyline, it's all downhill through the SS sequence into the dipper at turns 13 and 14, and they continue their way through fast line all the way to the braking zone at turn number 17 to make their way slowly in towards Forest Elbow, where there you need to brake nice and early because it's all downhill. It's a very sharp elevation drop. Out of that hairpin, they'll then make their way onto the back stretch, which is of course known as the Conrod Straight, powering their way all the way down towards the chase at turns 20, 21 and 22. As they come through the chicane, it's a short sprint to Murray's Corner at turn number 23 to complete the lap and do it all over again, or to finally see that checker flag. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's head back to circuit side and see how our drivers are getting on here as we are in the closing stages of this qualifying session. And right now, well, the fastest driver out there is none other than this man, Benedictus Sinkevicius, as he makes his way down the Conrod Straight in his Lamborghini Huracan Evo. Well, for Vulcan Motorsports, he is currently 26 thousandths faster than anybody else, with the next closest driver being none other than Brandon Dyer. And well, to be fair to the Acura driver, I do believe he was planning to switch to the Acura for this round onwards to the rest of the season, and right now that switch definitely seems to be working out well. I think he's drawn some inspiration from what I gathered down the pit lane from the performances that we've seen from Tseard Ploeg over the course of the season, and well, Dyer's definitely taking the inspiration from the Dutchman here, and right now his challenge is in the Tseard Ploeg, no doubt about it, but the Inter-Racing team driver here won't want to be in the shadow of his fellow elite driver. He today wants to stand tall and not have anybody cast a shadow over him. Again, how close it is, I suspect right now he may be hoping he's just got that little bit more time. But if that's your top two in the elite class, with William Humphrey not too far behind, both in the picture shot there, coincidentally, and in the third right now, where's the best part there of 2.5 tenths off of Dyer's time. Well then, who's the fastest in Pro? It is currently provisionally your championship leader, Rhys Saunders, in his Ford Mustang, and well, of course, this car is going to be quite beastly here at the Australian circuit. Not just because Australia, of course, is the home of V8 racing, and indeed, you do have the infamous V8 Supercar Championship, which originated in Australia, and it continues to be hosted at Australian circuits, including Bathurst, where the infamous Bathurst and 500 each and every year, or Bathurst 1000, I should say, I do believe it's actually known as. And as Saunders makes his way on the mountain straight right now, he definitely is channeling his inner V8 supercar energy here in order to be able to try and take the pole position in the Pro class. But then who is second fastest in Pro? Well, you go from 7th overall to 11th overall. And well, here's a face we haven't seen qualifying towards the front of Pro class before. It is Schubert Cardozo, who right now, well, he's in the BMW M4 Evo, and he's looking very impressive right now for Inter-Racing team. And to be fair to Schubert, he's an absolute absolutely lovely guy down the pit lane. I've had the pleasure of conversing with him for a brief few moments over the course of this season, and there has been this running joke between us whereby whenever he's featured in the broadcast, he has normally been featured at a moment where it's gone very wrong for him. Either he's not qualified well, or it's not going well in the race, so he's been involved in an incident. So secretly, although I'm going to say it publicly right now, I'm actually really happy for him that we're getting to see him have a good qualifying session, just for the simple reason right now we want to see him up there, and well, you could not know a more friendly guy on the grid to be enjoying himself out there. And even when he feels down after the race, he always catches up the broadcast afterwards, and he always enjoys himself doing so. And the fact that he's got such a positive mentality, I think we could all take a little bit from Schubert's mentality. But as he makes his way down Conrad right now, he in turn is only the best part of 200s ahead of Alex Fretwell, and this is looking very good for Fretwell as well. This is going to be his best qualifying points of the season at this rate, as he's currently third fastest in Pro, 12th overall. And well, as he makes his way down, we make our way down to the YouTube chat there to say hello to a few of you. And if you haven't said hi already, don't be shy, feel free to say hi. We always do love to check in on the chat every so often here in Split A broadcast. And well, if you have had a bit of a difficult day, if you're frowning right now, well, keep in mind it is Thursday. Friday is only a doorway away. And when we make our way through Friday, you know what happens after that? Well, we've got the GT Championship on Friday evenings. You think I was going to say the weekend, didn't you, ladies and gentlemen? No, the weekend comes after that. We do have GTEs here at SimRacing International tomorrow evening as well. But then we do have the weekend, of course. And as we do say hello to a few of you, including none other than Akurbai. Good evening to you, good sir. I hope you're doing well. Cheering on Glass Tech Racing, of course. We also do say hello there to none other than Sovietsky, who says Bathurst is a banger, and 100% agree with you, good sir. This is one of the best circuits in the world. There's no doubt about it. Albeit, I'll tell you one thing secretly. When I first got on the simulator all those years ago, this was the one circuit I refused to do any laps at because I was so terrified of it. And then one day I bit the bullet and said, right, I'm just going to do it. And I started to absolutely love Bathurst. As Danny Phillips there makes his way back to the pit lane, I suspect to put some more fuel in the car and give himself one last ditch shot at qualifying here. And we also do say hello there to none other than Martin Reyners, who says, even all, let's go Stubb. Cheering on Nick Stubb there. And it's good to see a few of you cheering on Nick Stubb today. Where is Nick Stubb, I hear you ask meanwhile? Well, he's currently 7th fastest in the Pro class, 21st overall, just off of Menno Blown, the driver we were just looking at moments ago, your VIR winner in the Pro class. And Stubb right now less than a 10th away from him, and hoping to get a little bit closer before all is said and done. We also do say hello there to AB Designs. I believe that is Ashley Brooks Designs, a livery designer in his own right. Correct me if I'm wrong, good sir. And I hope you're doing well. And we also do say hello to Mitch Brown there, who's here to cheer on James Howarth, the GOAT. And so do say hello there to none other than Matthew Packer, who are there throwing a little bit of banter with regards to James Howarth. Now, we do have some questions there with regards to which other cars have a speed advantage beyond the Mustangs. That's a very good question. Now, keep in mind, the balance of points that we are running here is not the iRacing Bathurst 12-hour balance of points. There is a separate one for that specific event this coming weekend. We are running the default balance of points. If you are seeing some cars here that are performing better compared to what you've perhaps seen in some testing in preparation for that special event, that explains why. As that's Fotis Katsios there, testing the suspension of his Ferrari 296, and in the end demonstrating the fact that it is able to take the impact coming out of McPhillamy Park. But in terms of the cars that are going to be very quick on the straights, well, we can expect the Mustang to do so. We can also expect the BMW M4 Evo and also the Mercedes AMG Evo. There's a running theme here. Front engine, rear wheel drive will normally be kings of straight line speed, but they will suffer in the corners by comparison. The Aston Martin, such as that of Mark Johnson, will be a little bit slower. The Aston Martin has been a very interesting car BOP-wise, because arguably you could say it's the most mid-engine of the front engine cars in terms of how the balance of performance is applied to it. Now, it is a front mid-engine car by default, so the engine tries to be behind the front axle as much as possible, and that way shift the weight distribution towards the centre of the car to provide better rotational capability. But this car, it has a very interesting setup. A V8 engine, a Mercedes V8 engine with a twin turbo system, but that turbo system introduces a significant amount of turbo lag. So it is one of those cars whereby you've constantly got to keep the revs very high in order to get the most power out of it. That makes it a very quick car in the corners, like a mid-engine rear-wheel drive car typically would be expected to be because of cornering capability and weight distribution. Alternative rear engine wheel drive, such as the Porsche that's sitting right behind Johnson. However, when it gets onto the straight, if it's not right towards the top end of its RPMs in each gear, it does suffer. So it actually takes a long time to get up to top speed. Much like, in a way, the Ferrari 296s, such as Ryan Nickerson's here, the elite driver for Split Straight Esports. However, do keep in mind that this Ferrari in a tow is an absolute monster of a car. If it's got slipstream, it can pick up a huge amount of speed, but that's the problem. if it hasn't got a slipstream, it's a car that takes a long time to get there. And you do find most of the time drivers actually stay in 5th gear in this car on the straights. They do not use 6th. The 6th gear of the Ferrari has been geared so long, or tall as we like to say, to the point in the end it's rarely ever used unless you get to a long straight, such as say the banking of Daytona, or alternatively the Mulsanne straights of Le Mans. Otherwise, it's normally 5th gear every step of the way. So hopefully that fills in the question there from Sovietsky with regards to which cars have a speed advantage beyond the Mustang, and well, the cars we may expect to struggle a little bit here in terms of pace, and particularly in the races, would be, say, the Porsches, just because they don't have the straight line speed, but they do have the cornering capabilities. Also, perhaps the Acura, although Brandon Dye is putting a bit of a trend setter in the fact he's been able to put himself second, and also the Lamborghini Huracan Evo. Well, that's normally a bit of an all-rounder based on the balance points, but it is a very unstable car when tyre wear becomes a consideration. But you know the one thing we haven't done yet? We talked to you about these cars, we're looking at them, but we haven't brought you an on-board lap with one of them. So without further ado, let's make sure we amend that, because we've only got 6 minutes left in the session. And as we do see Alex Fretwell making his way down in towards Murray's Bend, well, let's jump on board with him for a flying lap, ladies and gentlemen, as he takes us around the Mount Panorama Raceway circuit. So now make his way down towards turn 1 into Hill Corner. Looks to his right hand side for his brake mark, and it will be at the 50 metre wall. He brakes just before it, about 75 metres. Down to 2nd gear, plenty of apex curve. Now full throttle all the way up the hill as he uses the toe there of Nathan Anstis to pull him along. At this point, he can take a bit of a breather as he makes his way up the mountain straight, but you'll notice he very gradually lets the car drift over to the left-hand side. No significant steering input, other than perhaps 1 or 2 degrees here to pull the car over to make sure he doesn't bleed any speed, and then braking as late as possible here in towards Griffiths Bend, coming through that right-hander, braking about 65 metres to the corner, into 3rd gear. Now flat out all the way up towards the cutting. But here into turn number 3, lift off the throttle and get onto the brakes. Trail brake in, get the car nice and tight to the inside wall as he makes way out the corner as this pulls aside. And Fretwell now blind through turn number 5, in towards 6 as he makes his way for the second half of Quarry Bend. Now it's into left-hand Kinker 7 here, into the quadruple left-hander. Then number 8, he's going to be flat out here, get as close as possible to the wall to open up turn number 9, lift off the throttle, hold 5th gear, and now in towards McPhillamy Park here. Brake just before the rise, and as he chucks the car in, oh, he hits the apex curve, that's going to send it around for Fretwell, and it goes sideways into the barrier. Nathan Anstis follows him through, and in the end, well, Fretwell sideways on the road, but immediately there gets it under control and tows it back to the pit lane. Just took a bit too much apex curve, and that's the one corner you do not want to touch the apex curve at all, is at McPhillamy Park, because it just sends the car sideways, it lifts the front left tyre up, and at that point the rear right tyre becomes over compressed on the suspension. But where we've lost the lap there for Alex Fretwell, we'll see if we can continue the lap with another one of our drivers. And who can we do it with? Can we do it with a Lewis Kenyon potentially? Yes, we can. In fact, we're going to get a Porsche for Porsche comparison here as Lewis Kenyon picks up the slack as he makes his way in towards McPhillamy Park. Now there you go, misses that curve just about, or a light gentle touch of it, over Skyline, and now onto the brakes here, drop down from 5th to 4th to 3rd, into 2nd as he continues to ride the brakes down, into the dipper, chuck the car in, back with the full throttle immediately, get the rear of the car settled down, and full throttle now all the way towards turn 17, blind right-hander on the brakes nice and early, gently on the brakes, and then fully on coming down in towards Forest Elbow, close to the wall in 2nd gear, and full throttle out now, and down the back straight he goes. No kangaroos here today, indeed, they've been all put aside, not modelled on iRacing, but as he powers his way along, well, right now, full throttle every step of the way, and as he does so here, will he be bouncing his way to high up the order? We'd be hopefully seeing that so, because he needs that for his championship charge, and as he gets ready to come down in towards the chase from Conrad, flat out through the right-hander, 170 miles now, 171, he breaks his way down, 150 metres on the apex at turn 21, down to 3rd gear, now flat out all the way through turn number 22, in low fuel conditions, you can do that. In heavy fuel, you might have to lift slightly. We're coming down towards Murray's Corner, the final bend of the circuit, braking at 100 metres from apex, down to 2nd gear, clears the corner, and that completes our split into 2 on-board laps there. And a big thank you to our drivers, both Alex Fretwell and also Lewis Kenyon, for giving us that on-board ride. But a huge moment there, no doubt about it. As we see Sim 52 there, I presume that is going to be Alex Fretwell, given the fact he's door number 52. Thanks for watching me then, and well, what a coincidence. I do apologise, Alex. I do seem to have this thing about giving the commentator's curse to anybody we ride on board with, or even just focus on in the qualifying session. Well, I hope you're doing well and able to get all out the car A-OK and are all set now for the racing, because that 3rd place in Pro looks to be your best qualifying points of the season, and well done to you if it does hold up, and right now it's looking quite good for you. But as we do look to Milton Tomlinson Dennis, a change of car here today, intriguingly, going to the Aston Martin. Now MTD as his name is abbreviated to, and he does let us use that to be fair, but I always like to use his full name where possible. Well, right now, the World of Racing STR Esports driver, a black livery car today. I suspect right now this might be awaiting a fully fledged livery on the car, but still, he's not got time to waste here. He definitely wants that championship crown to head his way where he can. And well, he's got one more lap of this to go, because when we do get to zero, there is no overtime today, given this is a sprint race round format. We go straight to the grid for the first of our 2 races. There's no warm-up, there is no breather. We go racing immediately, and it has caught out some drivers earlier on this season, to be fair. But Tomlinson Dennis right now goes on to that final tour of the circuit, and Sinkavicius, meanwhile, has raised the bar a little bit higher, perhaps. Why has he not? No, not quite. He's still on that 2 minute 0.828. He's hoping for a bit more, as meanwhile, we've got a purple middle sector for Jesper Svensson here as he heads down into the final corner for Heracles Performance. What's it going to be coming through Murray's Bend? Can he find a way to move up from 6th place here? Can he put himself onto perhaps the second row of the grid? And the answer is he was half a second down, and he does not improve. He stays exactly where he is right now. But Svensson there finding a bit more time out there, and I think sometimes still finding that time as he goes sideways there coming out to turn number 1. Now in terms of your weather for today, a brief overview of it. We do have relatively cool conditions here. 19 degrees centigrade track, well 90 degrees centigrade ambient temperature I should say. 21 degrees centigrade track temperature and partial cloud. So these are perfect conditions. It's a lovely afternoon here in Australia, and the drivers will be very happy for that, not to have boiling hot conditions, which you could perhaps expect at this time of year, but it's a bit cooler because this race is going to be running later in the day, or our races are, and that works out a treat. And there's a lot of cloud as well coming over the circuit right now, which continues to essentially make sure those temperatures go down. But who's going down in the field right now, and who's going up? Well, it does seem as though Katios all the way down in 21st, 7th of your pros. That's not where he wants to be. And we're even further down, the odd James Howarth down in 16th for the pros here, 32nd overall. With 30 seconds left on the clock, he won't get another lap in. That's going to be his last one. And Ross Young all the way down here in 39th. And, well, where is Mikey Story in all this? The answer is Story's a little bit further up the orders to understand it. Right now, Ross Young struggling in the qualifying session. Hayden Miller's just come across the line, and he's improved to a 201.303, but he doesn't move up the order. He stays in 5th. And well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think all the drivers will get their last laps in. Schubert Cardozo will be taking second in Pro, because in 3, 2, 1, that is qualifying done. And it is time for us to make our way to the grid for the first of 2 sprint races here for round number 7 of the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship Season 11, and of course you are tuning in to none other than Split A. So as they all make their way to the grid, this is how they'll line up for the first of our 2 races. Starting on pole position is going to be none other than Benedictus Sinkavicius, the Vulcan Motorsports 1 driver there, taking the pole position in the absence of his teammate Tseard Ploeg, and making sure immediately to keep the mantle high for the Vulcan Motorsports outfit. Then starting alongside him on that front row of the grid, we have none other than Brandon Dyer with his best qualifying points of the season. Well done to the InterRacing team driver, that's very impressive, and only 26 thousandths off of the pole time. There's a further 2.5 attempts to William Humphrey, who starts in 3rd for Vulcan Fastens by Glass Tech, ahead of World of Racing STR Esports' Milton Tomlinson Dennis. Then on row number 3, it's Hayden Miller for Vulcan Motorsports 2, ahead of Jesper Svensson for Heracles Performance, with Reece Saunders, your pro pole sitter, in 7th there for Altitude Frame Esports, ahead of Lewis Kenyon for Vulcan Motorsports 2. Then it's Ryan Nickerson for Split Track Esports, ahead of Schubert Cardozo, a season best performance there for InterRacing team. He starts 10th, second of your pros. Outside the top 10, Tim Modig starts in 11th there, ahead of Dan Edvardsen, with the sim coach and Relentless Racing drivers both achieving very good qualifying points, and ahead of Alex Fretwell for RLH, I should say there, as I got my letters in the wrong order, or taking 3rd there in the Pro Class, a season best in qualifying for him, even if it went wrong when we tried to ride on board with him. Starting in 14th, it's going to be Ashley Coutland for Relentless Racing, just ahead of Mark Hutchinson, with the Altitude Free Esports driver, then just pipping Mike Barber to 15th in the post, with the Quatermass Motorsport driver behind him by the best part of 400ths. Then it's Nicholas Carlson starting in 17th place there for Beowulf Racing Team, ahead of Danny Phillips, with the Dexterous Motorsport Squad driver being followed up by Robin Noel Brown for GPX SimSport Xenon, and SimRacing Team Lowlands Menno Bloem, your VIR winner last time out in Pro, and here today he could achieve 6th place in qualifying. Keep your eyes out for him. Starting on the 11th row of the grid, it's Fortis Katios for Split Track Esports, head of Nick Stubb for Vulcan Fasters by Glasstep. Behind the Dutchman, Matthew Croft there alongside him at Connor Spree. Behind those two, it then continues the theme of Axis SimSport Machinery on the left-hand side of the grid, because it's Thomas Pugh there starting 25th for Axis SimSport X, and he's joined on that row by Chris Jennings for Axis SimSport X, his teammate. Jared Love begins the day in 27th, ahead of none other than what will be the machinery there of Augustus Dablavicius, and then the Gassed Up Motorsports driver will have the company of David Hutchison and Matthew Bacon behind him to complete the top 30. Outside the top 30, we have Liam Fraser starting 31st ahead of James Howarth, and then it will be on row number 17, Ville Katonen, who, not feeling well, has struggled in qualifying to a 33rd place start. However, he'll be looking to move forward where he can from the bottom end of the top 20 of the pros, ahead of Wesley Van Rens, and then it will be Mark Johnson starting 35th ahead of Samuel Clark, and then we will have Mikey Story with a poor qualifying point starting 37th ahead of Nathan Anstis, and it's Story's teammate of Ross Young right behind him ahead of Frank Bouillerson, and then it will be on the final 3 rows, Cy Anthony and Danny Cilliers, ahead of Mark De Vries and Max Wheeler, and last but not least, we'll have Jamie Bardwell and Kyle Roy. Well, poor qualifying points there, only 46th. That's a shock to the system. But right now, ladies and gentlemen, we can't talk about that anymore because it's time for us to go green flag racing. Out to the final corner they come. And for Benedict to Sinkvicius, that green flag will come very quickly. And as it does so, we are green for the first 30-minute race here today. And the Bathurst Speedway as they roll the way down towards turn 1. And Sinkvicius immediately right now going defensive. Brandon Dine looks around the outside. Can he get the move? No, he can't. Hayden Miller battling with William Humphrey. It's 3 wide there in the Aston Martin squeeze. And in the end, Milton Thomas and Dennis will lose some momentum on the outside. They survive it. Well done to them. Never seen 3 wide into Hell Corner in a long time. And as they make the way up the hill, well, immediately our top 2 already bolting away. But further back, plenty of fighting going on here as the sound of machinery charge its way upwards in towards the first major braking zone. As they all come onto the brakes, we have 2 leaders that are too quick for the camera there. Meanwhile, everyone else 2 by 2 by 2 going towards Griffiths Bend. Further back, we can see there Nicholas Carlson. He's had an absolutely brilliant start here, already up to 18th place, getting ahead of Menno Blum, squeezes well through. But as all the machines now make the way into the cutting, who exactly is going to cut ahead of whom? Well, Blum tries to go around the outside there. Can he get stopped in time ahead of Carlson? The answer is yes, he can. So will be Blum squeezing his wound around there, and Carlson right now losing that 4th place in Pro 2. Here's Dutch rival, but to be fair, will try and come back at him when he can. And David Hutchison, he's had a reasonable start as well on the back of Jared Love now as they make the way through. Oh, there's a car into the barrier there. Who's that? I think that's Robin Noel Brown's car hitting the wall. The GPX Sport Zendan driver who carries on. He's able to continue. We should have pointed out earlier on they do have a mandatory tow zone if a driver's involved in an incident. Anywhere between turns 2 and 19, they are expected to tow if the car's in an unsafe position. But for Robin Noel Brown, as he was parallel to the racing line, able to continue, he hasn't had to tow. So do keep your eyes out for that, ladies and gentlemen. We expect a lot of cars to be towing if they go sideways over the mountain. But meanwhile, coming down out of the mountain for the first time, we'll see Cavicius right now still ahead of Dyer and roaring the way down Conrad here. You can definitely see that Lamborghini now starting to open up the gap with its Audi V10 engine compared to the 3.5 litre V6 of the Acura, of course, provided by Honda. But as they come down in towards turn 20, in towards the chase, well, what you can see is William Humphrey ahead of Hayden Miller and Nickerson behind, as Milton Tomlinson Dennis will, after being elbowed out slightly wide, then the 3 wide in towards Hell's Corner. We'll get a replay of that when we can, because that was absolutely epic between them, and that can't be understated enough. But meanwhile, Schubert Cardozo, he's trying to find his way past Dan Edvardsen. Ashley Coupland and Tim Modig fighting side by side. That's Coupland on the inside here into the braking zone for the final bend. Well, going all in then, that's going to be a smooth move from him, and nice and easy as that. And now Ashley Coupland up into 10th in the elite class. But after one lap of racing, it is none other than Benedictus Sinkevicius who leads ahead of Brandon Dyer. Then we have William Humphrey and Hayden Miller, followed by Ryan Nickerson. Rhys Saunders, your pro leader, 6th at the moment overall ahead of Jesper Svensson. Well, Milton Tomlinson Dennis down to 8th ahead of Lewis Kenyon, and then Edvardsen completes that top 10. That's the rest of 11th. It's your second place driver in the pro class, Schubert Cardozo, and rounding off what is the podium places so far of the pro class is Alex Fretwell back in 14th place. Speaking of Fretwell, he's side by side here with Mark Hutchinson going up the inside. And in the end, he'll get that place back of Hutchinson, who looks to try and outpower him there in the Ford Mustang. But right now, it doesn't quite work out. As they all go single file coming towards the cutting. Is anybody else here considering going too wide for a brief moment? The answer is no. Albeit we're right on board here with Matthew Croft for Access Sport Y, as he's definitely right now trying to poke and probe his way past Chris Jennings, but that's not going to be easy to do, and he just follows him on through for now. And at this point, of course, you really are locked into running in track position with the next car, and that's one of the things that is important here at this circuit is track position. And when we have 2 30-minute sprint races, qualifying well is going to be highly invaluable. But of course, that reverse grid that we can expect for race number 2, that's also going to throw a spanner in the works there, where we do invert the top 15 finishing positions. But as Matthew Croft just follows his way down right now through these corners, through the 3 goes, and you see the gap opens up to give himself as much room through the corners. But by the time he comes into Forest Elbow, this is where he wants to be so close to an exit. We intentionally go a little bit wide there to open up the corner, take some more V-shape approach to carry more speed from apex onto the straight. But there, the Ford Mustang of Chris Jennings able to do a better job, albeit they are both teammates to be fair, so they want to fight each other too hard. But Croft understands we will want the Mustang in front of him to go faster and faster so he can go faster in turn, otherwise he might have to consider a move. But speaking of moves right now, well, these two may not be making moves on each other just yet, although saying that, Croft is looking tantalising close this time, but lifts off the throttle further back. That's too wide, and that's going to be Samuel Clark battling around the outside of David Hutchison. Can he get it stopped in time? Can Clark? Yes, he can. Outside to inside here, and the Dexterous Motorsport SimRacing driver, lovely move there from the Briton. That'll move him into 13th place in Pro, but Hutchison is still on the inside. He's going to try and go for it into Murray's Bend, but he's not going to be able to find the move. In the end, he is going to be made to wait, as Nathan Anstis, the driver who did struggle quite a bit in qualifying, he's battling with James Howarth right now for 16th place in Pro. These drivers pretty much where they started so far, but the fight is still on here between Clark and Hutchison. Hutchison going around the outside again, but he doesn't quite get it. Lifts off there, rides the curb, and decides to just pull back, as we see a run wide there from Mikey Story in the rear of the picture. And the Story right now, this is the last thing he wants to be all the way down in 18th place in the Pro class, 33rd overall, and the Dexterous Motorsports Command driver is not gelling well with Bathurst, at least at this time. But 3 wide, almost there into the braking zone. That's Liam Fraser looking up the inside. Well, of course it's going to be Liam Fraser looking up the inside. He's going to try and make a 3 wide happen. And that's not to be rude about, and that's a compliment to him. He makes things exciting, no doubt about it, whenever he's on screen. And right now, as he looks to try to hunt over Hutchison and Clark, he's pretty much saying to them, boys, if you don't get a move on, I'm going to make sure we all get a move on. And right now, Liam Fraser on the attack here as he makes his way over the rise and in towards what will be the next set of corners. But at this point, going all the way towards McPhillary Park at turn number 10. Surely he can't find a way to go side by side through here. You can do it, but you've got to expect the driver in front of you to make it the mother of all mistakes to do so. And well, nobody is making mistakes right now. You can be certain of that. But looking from them all the way back up to the front of the field, we have lost our race leader. What on earth has happened to Benedictus Sinkevicius? There has been an incident of some description that's seen him drop all the way down the field. Well, that's drama. And now your leader is Brandon Dyer for Inter-Racing Team, ahead of William Humphrey and Ryan Nickerson. And in fact, Hayden Miller has lost out in all of this. Miller's dropped down to 4th place. So therefore, there's been a bit of a chop and change. Can we get a replay or two to explain what exactly has happened? Yes, we can. And we're going to take a trip back in time, ladies and gentlemen, to talk about some of the big moments in this race, as that was almost a big move on the break in there from Hayden Miller, looking up the inside of Ryan Nickerson. But that was all about putting a threat to Nickerson and saying to the Ferrari driver, if you don't get a move on, I will very shortly. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get a move on and go back in time. So this was back to your race start, and of course we start off with the big 3 wide here between Miller, Milton Tomlinson, Dennis and William Humphrey. So as they all went green flag racing, your leaders there getting a good start, to be fair, absolutely side by side, but it was Sinkevicius who got the better one. Miller looked to the inside and, well, had the better run of the 3 of them. 3 wide they went in, and well, in the end they all did incredibly well to survive that. Although Tomlinson Dennis did get elbowed out slightly, I don't think you'll complain at that, given the circumstances. They all did incredibly well with that one. Now, what exactly went wrong for Robin Noel Brown over the mountain? This is what happened to him. So as he's making his way side by side there, battling with, I believe, the car of Matthew Croft at the time. Oh, there was a bit of contact, perhaps. I'm not 100% certain if there was contact or not. Can we get a bit of camera angle of that? We might be able to. That was coming through turn number 7, as they made the way up the crest and through the right into left of 60%. There was contact. The other camera giving us that demonstration, and 2 into 1 doesn't always go there, and I think both drivers just not quite aware of the width of each other's car, but in those early stages. But then the big moment, this happened to Benedictus Sinkevicius on lap number 3. So leading, coming out of Griffiths Bend, making his way in towards the cutting, and well, onto the brakes here, and in the end, Dyer looked up the inside. There was contact between the 2 of them, and it sent Sinkevicius all the way around and into the barrier. Dyer put his brakes on there immediately to make sure he didn't add to the instant, and well, that explains he had to automatically tow. Those are the rules, and this was the on-board from your 2nd place driver. Now the Inter-Racing Team driver, he was close here, but let's just listen in. And he went for the dive up the inside there. Now, some would argue he'd earned the right to be there. Some would argue that Sinkevicius perhaps turned into him. Others would argue he didn't have enough overlap. Well, it's indeed. That might go to the stewards after the racing, ladies and gentlemen. But that explains what happened to your race leader. And well, Brandon Dyer saw the door was open. He decided to go for it. And well, that might be a bit of a contentious move, which we talked about after the racing. But of course, we only see the camera angles that we get for the replays. We don't see every single angle as the stewards do. And that's why we're a commentator, not a steward, ladies and gentlemen. And we reserve the right to not have to judge. But as we do see Ryan Nickerson coming back to your live pictures, we're top 2 right now, definitely settling on down. And we did see that I Am Demand asking for a replay of what exactly happened to Sinkevicius. I'm giving you that replay now. So we're thinking alike, we are, good sir. And well, sorry to see it's gone a bit wrong for the driver you were cheering on, but it's the way it's gone for him. As everyone makes the way onwards, we'll say hello there to All About the Gyros. His Porsches are quite good here, and also the Lamborghini, albeit having to run much more rear wing due to a very active rear end, or in other words, a very unstable rear end. turned on the car. But meanwhile, there's still plenty of instability in amongst the field, as that's going to be Mike Barber there trying to out-drag probably Alex Fretwell. The two Porsches going side by side, and around the outside of Fretwell goes Danny Phillips there as well. That was a bit brave from him. Barber outbrakes himself in towards Griffins, and as they make the way now in towards the cutting, well, Phillips is going to look all the way around the outside, and that's going to work. Barber does lift off the throttle slightly there to let it go. He decides not to risk it. I think a smart move, to be fair for him. We have lost quite recently as well Samuel Clark and also Miller Blown. They have both towed to the pit lane on lap number 4. They've both had a bit of drama. We'll try and get a replay of that when we can. But meanwhile, well, this should be a race format that's going to suit this man. Fotis Cassius, meanwhile, for Split Strike Esports. He's on a mission here to try and carve his way through the field after starting quite low down in the pro class and knowing that he missed out on what could have been an incredible win in the wet at VIR. Well, right now he's got to try and prove today that he can have a much happier day at the office. And as he makes way down in towards the dipper very shortly, in front, and that's Nicholas Carlson in 4th place of pro, and then we've added Alex Fretwell only a further 4 attempts up the road. So Katios has already moved from the bottom end of the pro top 10 into 5th place. He's done a great job thus far, but now he wants to do even more in this one. And as they make the way in towards what will be Conrad, well, it's going to be full throttle here for the Ferrari, but you'll notice on the dashboard it finally gets to 5th gear, and now it'll be in 5th gear for a very long time as we briefly lose and then see Carlson re-materialise from the ether. And only Katios now halfway down the straight gets to 6th gear here, but he will spend an eternity building that gear up, and by the end of this run he won't be any closer to trying to make his way closer to P1. But looking up the inside there, that's going to move from Carlson. That sends Fretwell a little bit wide. Fretwell gets it out of sorts, and Indian Katios has to react very quickly, side by side, elbow to elbow there as they calm down. Fretwell's not too happy. I think he feels though there's contact with Carlson, and well, Katios looks up the inside there in towards Murray's Bend. It's not going to work out, and he has to instead stay where he is, and as a result Fretwell now loses 2 places, and he's got Nick Stubb here to try and add woe to his misery. And looking at the inside, Stubb's never going to say no to this. He goes all in, does Stubb, and right now it's going to be Mustang on the left versus Porsche on the right, albeit they'll flip when we look the other way on the cameras. And coming up behind that's Matthew Croft as well. Croft decides to get involved here, and can Crofty make a move, or will he not be able to? Here we go, as Matthew Croft right now, 6.3 litres of V8 machinery, it's dueling with 5 litres of it. Fretwell meanwhile is giving the toe to one and then the other, he's sharing it equally here, and well, he's an equal opportunist. There's contact between Croft and Stubb. Stubb goes a little bit wide there, they were always going to make a bit of a rub out of it, but it does force Stubb wide, and now here comes Chris Jennings, another Mustang looking for a move on the Vulcan Fasters by Glassset Racing Mustang, and coming in towards what will be turn number 4. Well, right now all these drivers back in line very quickly. They go from what is absolutely unruly aggression straight into civilised racing, and well, to be fair, can we blame them? No, it's absolutely brilliant. They know exactly where the limits are here at Bathurst and what you can do versus what you cannot do, and that's why we love these drivers so. But we're not even halfway through this race, and before we talk more about the guys at the front of the pro class, let's come a bit further back in the pro class, because here's Jamie Bardwell. Oh, that's careful. That's got to be very risky there for the Phoenix Racing Red driver, trying to take a sneak peek up the inside of turn 8 into 9. Well, you can do it, but you've got to have a lot of confidence, and indeed the driver in front of you's got to know you're coming. As they make the way down through Skyline, Bardwell backs off there as we ride on board the front bumper camera of his 62 Mercedes. Car into the wall there. That, I believe, was that Frank Boosen in the wall? I think it was. As meanwhile, poor run through the dipper there. Understandably, Cilliers, I think, backing off, wondering what was going on. And Bardwell got so close. Cilliers goes defensive on the inside here. That's not by design. That's a mistake from Cilliers, given the fact he understeered. I think he was just a little bit out of mind. And as they make the way on the Conrad straight, well, Bardwell now close, but not quite close enough. And of course, the Porsche in front of him gets the toe of the Corvette, the Mark de Vries, so therefore that neutralises his straight line speed advantage to a small limit, albeit as we do see Max Wheeler watching on from behind as well. These 3 drivers are going to stay as they are. The 3 pros right now getting close. Bardwell does look up the inside, he goes all in for the move. There's a bit of door to door, and it does send Cilliers to the grass, and the sim coach driver here won't be too pleased about that as he brings it back on. Well, unfortunately for him, the number 46 car now will drop down to 36 and will feel as though he's been elbowed off there, and indeed he'll be arguing it'll be a push to pass. But meanwhile, as we look from him all the way back up to his teammate of Matthew Bacon, the sim coach driver here in the 35 Porsche. Well, he's got himself in the company of Jared Love, and Love right now enjoying a better day today, currently running 10th in pro, chasing after this 9th place spot held by Bacon. But as we can see, Matthew Bacon going defensive on the inside there before turn number 2, and looking around the outside, Love's not going to find that move initially. That Porsche will be very quick out this corner, he can carry a bit more momentum, and that Ferrari meanwhile is battling uphill. It's like a salmon fishing up a river stream. And he comes through turn number 3 right now. Jared Love knows that, backs off immediately there and can't make the move happen in the cutting. He does hold that inside line there to try and get getting to Matthew Bacon's head to make him outbrake himself. And that's why he continues to be so close here, coming through turn 6 into 7. And right now, oh my good lord, and straight into the barrier there. And I was about to say, I don't know how he could see the corner. And well, that's the result of it. The fact he couldn't see the corner, all he could see was the rear end of that Porsche. And in the end, making the knock to the wall. But Love carries on. That's not going to help the steering whatsoever. But he's right now looking absolutely unhindered by it as they come down the hill in towards turns 12 and 13. And Jared Love right now, I can tell you one thing, it doesn't matter how many knocks and bangs he has, the DC Motorsport driver will carry on here all the way until the car can't keep going. And Wesley Van Rens and Liam Fraser behind here right now, probably looking at some thinking, how on earth is that Ferrari still going? And well, their guess is as good as mine and yours, ladies and gents, I can tell you that. But meanwhile, as we look from them back up towards the front of the field, here's Jesper Svensson, Dan Edvardsen and Milton Tomlinson Dennis. But at the MTD there, takes a cheeky peek up the inside, a relentless race of machine of Edvardsen. That was never going to happen from that far back. I think that was a little bit of a probe there just to see if he could get Edvardsen to outbrake himself or leave the door open. Meanwhile, into the pit lane has come Hayden Miller. So Miller's in. That's a surprise. We're not expecting any pit stops in these races today. This is a sprint round, but I suspect there for Hayden Miller as he makes well on the pit lane. Another car being released there. And well, Miller making his way along. I believe that might be a drive-through penalty. In fact, no, he's coming into his pit stall. I think they've underfueled the car by accident. They may have put a qualifying setup on that car and not put the right fuel into it. So there's drama there for none other than Vulcan Motorsports. He makes way in and then makes way back out. It's a very quick splash and dash from only 4 seconds, so it's either repair work, or he didn't have a meatball flag, but something's broken on the car, and alternatively he's discovered he's missing a lap worth of fuel. Well, as we do see Alex Fretwell, meanwhile, not missing a chance to try and keep always Matthew Croft at bay. Behind him, Hayden Miller has emerged, and as he has done so, he's emerged right into the thick of the pro fighting. William Fraser and Wesley Van Ren surrounding him on the left-hand side. Car parked up there, and that seems to be the car of none other than what is, I believe that Frank Peterson just parked up there. Not quite sure what's happened, but something's broken on the car, and I wonder if he'll be towing to the pit shortly. But meanwhile, what's on camera, we do see a continued fight, and Miller in the end will clear Fraser in towards the cutting, and therefore he moves ahead of the pro drivers. He doesn't change class position, 13th in elite, but he does now get himself comfortably clear as we look to those class standings. But Liam Fraser, he's got himself ahead of Wesley Van Rens and Mikey Story, but they also bring James Howard along for the ride as they come over the mountain, as these drivers do. And meanwhile, we take a look back in time to some of the bigger moments from earlier in the race, including what happened to Menno Blom on lap number 4. So if you're a pro driver making his way out to the dipper here, he was under a bit of pressure at the time for SimRacing Team Lowlands, came into Forest Elbow, onto the brakes, and what exactly went wrong? The rear of the car came loose and into the barrier. Oh dear! And for Menno Blom at that point, well, I think he wanted to see if he could just hold the brakes. Oh no! And contact there, and well, that was contact with Ross Young's car, and Ross Young in the end being collected with that. This way looked like from on board Ross Young as he made his way on around. In fact, this was a bit late. Well, no, this was Ross Young a bit later on from all that. So the Dexterous Motorsport Zemix driver, he had a bit of a poor run there coming through what was McPhillamy Park and lost out, as in the end that was a car going around the outside of him, and that was none other than, I believe, what was 2 cars, including the machinery there of Robin Noel Brown. So separate incident, that one entirely. We had this for Samuel Clark. Oh, and this was Samuel Clark who came into the side of Menno Blom. I do apologise for that. So that explains what happened there. We won't be able to get you on board with Samuel Clark, but explains where he's gone wrong. And then we had this only moments later for Milton Tomlinson Dennis on lap number 6. Now, he was at the time right in amongst the medley of Lewis Kenyon and also Dan Edvardsen. Went around the outside here, MTD did, and as he did so, a tiny tap there to the rear right quarter panel of the Porsche from Vulcan Motorsports, and it didn't look as though there was any malice there from Kenyon. I think he got a bit unsettled, and Tomlinson Dennis happened to be at the right place at the wrong time to be collected by that, and then Edvardsen went in and made contact there with what's Kenyon. That sent him spinning around, and suddenly the battle was reignited there as they made the way onto the start finish straight. So contact there between Edvardsen and Kenyon, perhaps a little bit more clear-cut, some would say, but meanwhile the Danish driver just carrying on then. That's all you can do when that happens. Forget about it and move on until the end of the race. That's when it gets picked up once again. With 12 minutes still left on the clock, and with everything that's going on, well, we have had a change of a leader recently. It happened on the previous lap. William Humphrey has taken over the lead as they roar the way on down in towards what will be turn number 18, but the 198 driver here making that ground and hoping that there's going to be even more to come here. Can he break away from Brandon Dyer? Well, Dyer in the slipstream here, has he got enough in that Acura to be able to catch up? Because we do know that Acura struggles with straight line speed. The Aston Martin is not the quickest out there, but it is a little bit quicker. Now Dyer will gain gradually, but the gap was 5 tenths when they left Forest Elbow, and by the time they get in towards the chase in the heavy braking zone. Here the gap's come down to 4 tenths. So Dyer right now not gaining. If anything, I think he'll be losing gradually over time. Going back to Dan Edvardsen versus Jesper Svensson. They're going to be too wide into the braking zone, and Edvardsen will defend here versus Svensson. Takes the place off him, and then simply says there's no way back for you as the BMW M4 continues to move forward in the 143's case. Albeit you can see that Tomlinson there taking a look to the inside. That's not going to work, and Svensson right now knows he's got to start thinking about going defensive. Ready at 4 held corner, and with it another 11 minutes to go. We've got a few more laps remaining in this one. Well, Milton, Tomlinson, Dennis here having to play the patience game as we quickly take a look back at how, well, in fact we're not going to just yet, we were going to take a look back at how the lead changed hands. We're going to ride on board for a brief moment with your 192 as he makes his way up towards turn number 2. Now pounding his way along here, that Ford Mustang is really going to have the muscle, plus the toe of Edvardsen at a distance here. And for MTD, he's thinking about the inside, but in the end he decides not to. And now he's learning what the setback is, going from the Mercedes to the Aston Martin. He's lost on that straight line speed, but what he's gained in return is a much more comfortable car under the braking and in the corners. So there's always trade-offs, but coming into the cut-in this time, there's no way in at the end. But from him, ladies and gents, we now look back in time, and this is how William Humphrey took the lead of the race. So it was on the run down towards Murray's Bend, and as they came on to the anchors, what exactly went wrong for Brandon Dyer? He just went deep there. So Dyer made a mistake, and in the end, Humphrey was able to steal the place away from him, and no concerns whatsoever. I wonder whether potentially Brandon Dyer had a black flag, in fact, because that looked as though he'd gone wide intentionally to slow down. And well, I don't have any records to explain yes or no, but I do wonder whether that's a bit of a moment there with regards to the black flag. But either way, we come back to your live race, and we do say hello to none other than Ridrid3919, and says, what is this race? And well, not quite sure what is Creek. As our drivers make the way around right now, definitely we are looking at a very entertaining race here. And still 10 minutes left on the clock, and your elite leaders absolutely battling still. As Brandon Dyer has come back now, William Humphrey. So Forest Elbows worked out for this time. Humphrey goes defence in the middle of the road, and Dyer simply says to him, well, not going it for now, but I might come for it the next corner. Meanwhile, further back, Tomlinson Dennis looking for a move on the inside here versus Svensson. Svensson does not have a response, and in the end, the 192 absolutely roars his way through. So Tomlinson Dennis now up into 5th place in Elite. He's back on the charge here and having a much happier day in the office. But whilst all this is happening towards the very front of the Elite field, further back, we do have Tim Modig still chasing after Ashley Coupland, the sim coach driver, chasing down the relentless racing machine, and Mark Hutchinson and Danny Phillips, they're all in the picture. They're fighting for 7th through to 10th place in the Elite class. Nicholas Carlson, he's off the back of this, and he's currently running 12th overall, and what is 2nd place in Pro. But Fotis Katios is there with him, 8 tenths behind, and right now thinking about an opportunity here. Katios has made his way to 3rd. Can he go that little bit further? Can he take 2nd place? I think Reece Saunders may be a little bit of a faraway dream, but if he finishes where he is currently, he will of course be starting 3rd place for the 2nd race of the day. We invert the top 15 finishing positions overall. He'll be very hopeful that he can be right towards the front for the 2nd and final race of the day. Although currently, Alex Fretwell will be your pole sitter of race number 2. He is currently 15th, just ahead of Matthew Croft and Nick Stubb. And those two are very much breathing down his neck. You see him in the rear of the picture there. As Katios in the end has to stay where he is for now. We come back to Fretwell, Croft and Stubb, focusing in particular on the man in the middle. And no, his name is not Malcolm, as he makes his way through the left-hander in towards the right. He's coming out of the cutting right now through Quarry Bend. Croft has been on the back of Fretwell for some time, but the problem with him is the fact that Porsche is just looking quick enough before it gets to the straights that is also looking safe enough. But from there, we come back to Mikey Story. He's on the back of Wesley Van Rens, and the Story, it was a dismal qualifying session, started 37th, and he's made up 13 places since the start, and a grand total of 8 in the Pro class. And Story right now the 2nd place driver in the Pro Championship, where things are as they currently stand in this race, and he has a similar result in race number 2. He's going to fall in right back into 3rd versus Fotis Katios. That's not something he definitely wants. Instead, he needs to find a way forward. But right now, the problem is overtaking around here is so challenging, as we do see there. Wesley Van Rens, it's getting very tight, as it's not Wesley Van Rens who is in the Corvette in front. That is going to be, I believe, a lap down Corvette of Miller Blown very shortly. In fact, no, it's Mark De Vries there, who they're making the way past. De Vries trying to respect the blue flags as best as possible, but over the mountain, that is nigh impossible as they head down the Conrad Straight now. The more ideal position, but De Vries doing his best there not to step in the way of anybody. Jared Love, meanwhile, after his big moment with the wall earlier on, now he's on the back of Danny Cilliers again. And more Love has fallen down the order since we last looked at him. He's got Sight Anti for close company behind. And Cilliers holds the middle of the road, makes the DC Motorsport Ferrari look one way. And we can see by being in the middle of the road right now, the Porsches really making this road not even 2 car wide. Albeit Love is going to go around the outside in. Can he beat the Porsche on the brakes? He's going to go all in for it, and he will get on there inside, and Tseard Love moves to 18th in Pro. That'll be worth some valuable points. Down towards turn number 23 he goes, and Tseard, does he try to come back? He does, but Love covers him off here, and Tseard Love right now trying to guarantee this, and with Tseard going to the outside and looking deep, it's not going to work out for him. The site Anthony now tries to get involved as well. Right on board here. Your number 27 driver from Wales, UK SimRacing Hamilton. He goes all in for the move up the inside. Albeit Tseard then will beat him to the apex, and Anthony knows he can't extend that apex too deep. That's why he'll be going straight on at the corner, and that will not be very happily looked upon by Tseard, nor will it by the Stewart if he was to make contact. But coming back to Katios, he's now got Mike Barber behind him. So he's lost out versus Carlson. So he make the way through left and in towards more left-handers. Well, Carlson's being given a breather. Mike Barber right now is going to find himself up against a driver who's definitely not going to want to give up track position if he can help it. Albeit the Quaintmass Motorsport driver wants to go hunting after Danny Phillips, who's 3 seconds ahead. So understandably, that's why the Quaintmass Motorsport driver we're quite keen to say to Katios in a way, why don't you give the place up to me, because then you'll be starting what will be second in the next race, because 14th is of course the penultimate position of the inversion. So I wonder if Katios will realise that towards the very end here. If he can't catch up to Nicholas Carlson, it might actually be better for him to give up the place to Mike Barber just to give himself one more place towards the very front of the field. It'll be a tactical advantage, and remember, elite and pro drivers, they score points based on their finishing position in class, not overall. So there's no value as a pro driver beating an elite driver, as there's no value as an elite driver beating a pro. It all comes down to your class representation. But as Barber takes a look up the inside right now, at least Katios is not budging. As we do look from them back to the very front, well, we still do have the best part of 5 minutes to go. Another 3 laps including this one. Big flash of the headlights there from William Humphrey. That's a flash of lights for the Corvette ahead of him. And that's going to be none other than what will be the Corvette of Menno Bloom, who you'll be trying to put a lap down on very shortly and saying to him, can you please be aware I'm coming? Albeit the gap right now, half a second at least between the two of them. So I think it's a bit premature, but of course trying to give as much early awareness as possible, particularly now as they get closer to the cutting here, and this is going to get very tight over the mountain very shortly. And Humphrey under major pressure here. Here comes Brandon Dye looking up the inside again, albeit this time not quite working out, and the InterRacing team driver backing off the now. Coming all the way through turns 5 and 6. Understandably, Dye wants that place back after Humphrey was able to snatch it away from him. It's not a good place to go for that overtake, particularly in that Acura. He has shown, however, it can be very quick when it needs to be. Third back, Ryan Nickerson. He's holding on to third place over on in the lead, ahead of Reece Saunders, the pro leader, and a very happy and lonely leader of the pro class right now, Saunders. I don't think he'll be too upset about that. But further back, oh, that's Nick Stubb going around. Stubb's gone for a spin, and that's going to be at the cutting. And well, parked up there, he's going to toe to the pits. That's not going to be allowed to retake the racing line, ladies and gentlemen, giving it 180 degrees round, and Nick Stubb right now towing to the pits after looking on course for what was at least a top 10 in the pro class. It's all gone backward, but let's quickly go backwards in time to understand what exactly happened to Nick Stubb. So this was Stubb looking one way then the other versus Matthew Croft, and tried to go around the outside of him into the cutting. That's bold, that's brave, and under braking in the end, tried to get it done, but lost grip there as he made his way through the corner, and it went spinning around, and at that point he was going nowhere fast other than to the pit lane. But back to live pictures we come, and here is Chris Jennings meanwhile, still trying to chase after Matthew Croft, albeit the separation of the two of them has Hayden Miller in the gap, and Thomas Pugh is right behind him. Looking up to an elite driver here, or 2 elite drivers fighting, Ashley Cooper and Mark Hutchinson. They're fighting over 8th overall at 7th in class. And Hutchinson taking the cheeky peek up the inside there, in the end not quite able to commit to a move. And Cooper right now holding on. However, Hutchinson in that Ford Mustang getting a much better exit out of the chicane, and now looking around the outside here in towards Murray's Bend, and Cooper there just defending the middle of the road and making sure that Hutchinson, if he wants it, he's going to have to be a lot more aggressive for it. As they get ready to go on to the penultimate lap, Tim Modi 1.2 seconds behind with Danny Phillips for company. So the sim coach driver here continues to move forward, as is Phillips. They've both made major gains in this race. Nicholas Carlson meanwhile, he's had an absolutely brilliant race to be fair, moving all the way from 17th to 12th, and in class moving all the way into that second place spot. And Costas Gantios now 2 seconds behind him. I think he's going to feel quite safe all the way to the very end of this one. From them, back to the front, Humphrey versus Dyer, the gap, a 10th here as they make the way through turn number 7, and well, Brandon Dyer, if he was any closer at this point, he would be touching the rear wing of his rival, and as they make their way through 9 in towards 10, the InterRacing team driver is who'll be right on board with here, the Jason Acura. getting ready to go over the skyline. Downhill they go, and what can Brandon Dyer do here? He's got one more lap after this. He'll know there's one more to go. He knows he doesn't need to get it done right now, unless he thinks as though if he gets ahead, he'll be able to break away. Well, a bit too close there coming through the dipper. Now in towards Forest Elbow here. Can he get a really good launch through this corner? The answer, no, not quite on a very tight line there, but I think he's just trying to stay right within the wheel tracks, the Aston Martin in front of him. Humphrey holding on the gap. 3 attempts they exited. Now making the way down Conrad here. The gap now coming down to 2 attempts as they get ready to make the way over the crest, and it's all downhill. 1.5. It's coming down to attempt very shortly. Will Dyer go for it? Does he look to the inside? Humphrey defends to the outside. That's going to give him the inside of the chicane. Dyer looking on around, both on the brakes hard and early as they make the way through the left into right. Humphrey holds on. Dyer does not try to force the issue. He's got one more lap to get this done, but now he knows the change that confronts him. We're getting ready to go in towards the final bend this time around. Well, much later on the brakes. You can see it in the language of the car, even with the concertina effect in play. Brandon Dyer's got the best part of about 5 to 10 metres under heavy braking distance versus that Aston Martin, but because he had to back off there, one standing William Humphrey has been able to buy himself a bit more time as they go on to the final lap. So the white flag is out. Next time around it will be the checker flag. Meanwhile, Ashley Coutland defending versus Mark Hutchinson. Hutchinson trying to go around the outside there. Coutland giving him just enough breathing room to react as they come through the corner. Hutchinson again just being held to a T. As we can see, Tim Modig right now not able to get involved here. But Hutchinson looks one way then the other, and Coutland does not react. No, and there's no way for the 132 to get close to him this time around, but there's still some more corners on their way. Further back, we have Wesley Van Rens holding on to 9th here for 9 places planned for a racing in the Pro Class. 22nd overall ahead of Mikey Story and Vele Katonen, with Matthew Bacon just in front of them. Bacon's had a bit of a slow previous lap, and that's enabled Van Rens to get a bit closer. So therefore, it's all to play for between these drivers. And meanwhile, Jared Love still enjoying himself fighting here. Oh, there's contact with Danny Cilliers. He goes flying to the barrier there. Does Jared Love? My good Lord, an absolute nightmare moment between them. And meanwhile, David Hutchinson up the inside of Nathan Anstis to recover 13th place in the Pro Class. But from everything that's happening further down the field, let's go back to the front of the field. Let's not forget about our leaders. And right now, William Humphrey still holding on to that lead as they come over the skyline into the dipper this time. But rolling the way between the apexes here. And Dyer right now getting a really good run. But now it's time for Forest Elbow. Can he get the mother of all runs here? Well, what's he going to do this time? And the answer is same as before. As you can see, the sparks flying there from the under tray of Humphrey's car. The front right bodywork actually compressing and hitting the tarmac. But down that straight they come, and as they do, building upwards of 160 miles an hour here already. And Humphrey right now puts the car on the outside again. It's much like the previous lap. It's deja vu. But what can be done differently by Brandon Dyer this time? If anything, can he get close enough to look for the move? Humphrey going defensive. Dyer looks one way, then the other. He makes contact on the braking. Hits the rear of Humphrey's car. They go too wide in towards the chicane, and coming out it right now. Humphrey takes the place back there. Dyer does not force it, and it would be pushed to pass. And William Humphrey now goes defensive in the middle of the road here. Surely that's got to be it, unless Dyer can pull off the mother of all moves around the outside. He's going to go for it. He's going to go all in, but William Humphrey in the end is going to run him out of road, and Humphrey takes the win. Elite and overall ahead of Brandon Dyer, with Ryan Nickerson on the podium. 3rd place once again, ahead of your pro winner of Reece Saunders, who takes 4th. Then it's Dan Edvardsen who takes home 5th place, just ahead of Milton Tomlinson Dennis, with a further 10.5 seconds gap to this man, who's held on very well, Jesper Svensson, to take 6th place in Elite and 7th overall, just ahead of Ashley Coutland as they come across that timing line, with Mark Hutchinson not able to get past the relentless racer machine. Tim Modi will complete your top 10 overall ahead of Danny Phillips, where Nicholas Carlson finishing it in 12th, 2nd in Pro. Well done to him for his best result of the season ahead of Fotis Gatios, and it's Mike Barber in 14th place, just ahead of Alex Fretwell, who rounds off the top 15, and with it takes pole position for race number 2, 4th in the Pro Class as well, with Matthew Croft just missing out on that grid inversion, 16th on the road, ahead of Hayden Miller, Thomas Pugh, Chris Jennings and Liam Fraser, who completes your top 20. And as all our drives cool them down, well, let's see a few more finish the race, of course. Axis since what X is. David Hutchinson there coming on through, just ahead of Nathan Anstis, with Mark Johnson taking 28th, and it will be Cy Anthony and Danny Cilliers completing that top 30. And outside the top 30, let's not forget about them, we do have Augustus Dablavicius, who after an early instant, well, he's been able to get this race definitely back on the road, and it shows. He's 18th in Pro, getting some valuable points just ahead of Jamie Bardwell. And then we will have Benedictus Sinkevicius, who lost out, of course, in the early stage of the race with that contentious instant between himself and Brandon Dyer into the cutting. And, well, he's got himself back out there. He won't be starting from the very back of the field. He has been able to get himself to 33rd, but he'll be ruining the fact that he's now got all the work to do, and this is not going to be anywhere as straightforward as perhaps he was hoping. Ross Young is still to finish the race. He is a lap down, but to be fair, he stayed in it to win it, and we love to see this on the Scottish driver for Dexterous Motorsports MX. And therefore, he's going to come on home in 39th and wears 24th place in the Pro class. So picks up a small haul of points. Remember the fact your top 30 in Pro will pick up points. And as he comes to the timing line, well, great work there from Ross Young to make sure he finishes the race as he started it. And we see him to that checker flag. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, that was race number 1. And with that one done, well, now it's time for a bit of a breather. I'll try to get 5 minutes to cool them down, and in the meantime, we're not going to get a breather here in the commentary booth because we're going to take you through those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. And as we can see, after an absolutely intense race number 1 of the day here in Split A's, round number 7 of the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship Season 11, brought to you on iRacing from the Mount Panorama circuit. It was William Humphrey who took the overall win for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Step Racing, just ahead of Brandon Dyer. The InterRacing team driver in the end tried to find his way through, but it didn't quite work out after Humphrey took the lead off of him midway through the race, and the Acura driver in the end having to settle for second place. Ryan Nickerson completing the overall and elite podium there. Well done to the Split Strat Esports driver, bringing home that third place, matching his best result of the season and looking for second next time out. With Rhys Saunders there finishing 4th, but most importantly for him, taking a very comfortable Pro Class win. The Altitude 3M Esports driver absolutely in control. Dan Edvardsen took home 5th in the end for a relentless racing ahead of Milton Tomlinson Dennis, with the Elder Racing with STR Esports driver there just behind Edvardsen, but comfortably ahead by the best part of 11 seconds there over Jesper Svensson. When the late stage of the race, Heracles' performance was struggling a little bit on pace, but to be fair to him, taking home one of his best performances of the season in 6th place in the elite class. Ashley Coutland was 8th there for relentless racing, just holding off Mark Hutchinson, with the Altitude 3M Esports driver making sure to fend off Tim Modig in the late stages who completed the top 10, and behind the Simcoach driver it was Danny Phillips best of the rest overall in 11th place there for Dexterous Motorsports Quamar. It was then a further second back to Nicholas Carlson, your runner-up in the Pro class. Well done to the Beowulf Racing team driver, just ahead of Fotis Katios who completed the Pro top 3, and the Split Strat Esports driver in the end 13th ahead of Mike Barber decided not to give the place up to him, so did not go for the tactical approach, and the Quakemas Motorsport driver will take the second place on the grid for race number 2. But the driver who starts on pole position for the next one is going to be none other than Alex Fretwell there, 4th in Pro, 15th overall, and earned himself the right to be the pole sitter for our second race of the day for Team RLH. Matthew Croft took 16th there for Axis and Sport Wide, just missing out by half a second, and in turn he was 4 tenths ahead of Hayden Miller, who recovered well to 17th place ahead of Thomas Pugh, with Chris Jennings and Liam Fraser rounding off the top 20. Now we won't dwell for too much longer on the overall finishing positions because this is not where the points are scored, but you can see there Matthew Bacon a bit further behind in 21st ahead of Wesley Van Rens, with Mikey Story recovering from a 37th place start all the way to 23rd. Great effort from him to do so. Ahead of Villa Katona and James Howarth. And then your top 30 was completed by David Hutchison, Nathan Anstis, Mark Johnson, Cy Anthony and Danny Siliers. And then it was 31st Augustus Dablavicius, with the Lithuanian driver being followed up by none other than Jamie Bardwell. And then Benedictus Sinkevicius finishing off those who finished on the lead lap. It was a lap down to Jared Love, to Menno Blom, Lewis Kenyon, Robin Noel Brown, Mark DeVries, Frank Beerson and Max Wheeler. And we also did see their lap down to Ross Young in 41st place. It was 2 laps down to Nick Stubb, who did finish the race, albeit after the unfortunate incident at turn number 4 late on in the race. And we did see Schubert Cardoza in the end have to retire for InterRacing team with what was 7 laps still to go. And unfortunately, we didn't quite see what happened to Cardozo, but I suspect he may have had a spin and had to tow to the pits immediately. Samuel Clark took 44th in the end on the retirement list ahead of Connor Spree, with Carl Roy sadly in the end not making any progress in this one. But as for your class finishing positions, we start off with the elite class, and as we can see, William Humphrey there, a winner for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing, a very valuable win to him and getting his championship momentum back on form, just ahead of Brandon Dyer there, the InterRacing team driver, who absolutely did a phenomenal job, and I do believe there that might be Elwood Blue, is Brandon Dyer in the YouTube chat, who says, amazing last lap, my nerves are shot, William, or if it's not him, well then definitely right now somebody enjoying seeing the racing between the two of them. Ryan Nickerson took 3rd in the end for Split Strat Esports, a bit further behind, and round off that podium ahead of Dan Edvardsen and Milton Tomlinson Dennis, and then Jesper Svensson 6th on the road ahead of Ashley Coutland, Mark Hutchinson, Tim Modig and Danny Phillips. Outside the elite top 10 it was Mike Barber in 11th, picking up some valuable points for Quakemas Motorsport ahead of Hayden Miller and Thomas Pugh, with Benedictus Sinkevicius being the last lead lap finisher ahead of lap down drives of Lewis Kenyon and Max Wheeler, and we did see Connor Spree your sole elite retiree. In the Pro class, meanwhile, we did see a win for none other than what was, we jump all the way back to the top for Rhys Saunders there for Altitude 3M Esports, a phenomenal win by 18.2 seconds, ahead of Nicholas Carlson and Fotis Katios, who were your podium finishers, and it was Alex Fretwell ahead of Matthew Croft, with Chris Jennings just outside the top 5 there ahead of Liam Fraser, and then Matthew Bacon, Wesley Van Rens and Mikey Story in the end all close together and round off the top 10. Villa Katona was only a 10th behind at the finish line in 11th best the rest of Beowulf Racing team ahead of James Howarth, and it was David Hutchinson ahead of Nathan Anstis and and Mark Johnson to complete the top 15. Outside the top 15, it was Cy Anthony ahead of Danny Cilliers, enjoying a good battle at the end, and there was a comfortable gap to Augustus Dalavicius, where Jamie Bardwell, your last lead lap finisher, ahead of a lap down Jared Love. It was also a lap down there for Menno Blome, Robin Noel Brown, Mark De Vries, Frank Brewson, and Ross Young. 2 laps down to Nick Starb, and then retirements for Shiba Cardozo, Samuel Clark, and Kyle Roy. But, ladies and gentlemen, as quick as that, we've gone through the results, and as quick as that has been done, it's now time to make our way to the grid once again, because race number 2 is just around the corner. And so, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we make our way to the grid once again, and this is how they'll line up for race number 2, the second 30-minute sprint here of round number 7 of Split A's Thursday GT3 Championship Season 11. Alex Fretwell this time inherits the pole position through what will be the top 15 inversion. He'll be joined on the front row of the grid by none other than Mike Barber for Quakemas Motorsport. That's your pro and elite pole sitters behind them, Fotis Katios and Nicholas Carlson. On row number 3, it's Danny Phillips ahead of Tim Modig. Enjoy the battle in between them in race 1. We'll see plenty more of it in race number 2, I suspect. And Mark Hutchinson and Ashley Coulton will be behind them on row number 4. Completing your top 10 is Jesper Svensson and Milton Tomlinson-Dennis, and outside of that top 10, starting in 11th place, we do have Dan Edvardsen, best of the rest. He'll be ahead of Reece Saunders, who absolutely ran away with the win in the Pro class in the first race today, but what can he do in this one? Now he's got places to make now, ahead of Ryan Nickerson and Brandon Dyer, who make it onto the 7th row, and then completing that top 15 inversion will be William Humphrey in 15th place on row 8. Matthew Croft joins him on that row, ahead of Hayden Miller and Thomas Pugh, with Chris Jennings and Liam Fraser completing your top 20. Outside the top 20, we do have Matthew Bacon just ahead of Wesley Van Rent, with Mikey Story there. He made up 14 place in race 1. How far can he come now in his second race today? He's ahead of Ile Katonen, with James Howarth and David Hutchinson on row 13, ahead of Nathan Anstis and Mark Johnson. And completing that top 30 will be Cy Anthony and Danny Cilliers. 31st, we had Augustus Dalavicius ahead of Jamie Bardwell, with Benedictus Sinkevicius behind his fellow countryman 33rd ahead of Jared Love. Next, Menno Blome and Lewis Kenyon on row 18 ahead of Robin Noel Brown and Mark De Vries. And Frank Brewson and Max Wheeler complete the top 40. Outside the top 40, 41st, it's Ross Young ahead of Nick Starb, with Schubert Cardozo and Samuel Clark in the penultimate row. And on the final row of the grid, it's Connor Spree and Kyle Roy. And well, ladies and gentlemen, as quick as that, we run through the field, and it's almost time for us to go green flag racing once again. And it's over to Alex Fretwell to get us away for 30 minutes of racing action. And out to the final corner they go, and they are green and go for the second and final time today. Alex Fretwell, they're getting a good start as Mike Bob was a bit eager and he had to fall back into the pack. But Fotis Katios immediately looks up the inside here. They all come roaring into that braking zone, and as they do, it's a bit of a distant camera shot, not the ideal one in the blimp camera. And so we bring you back to the circuit side pictures, and as they do, well, it's all gone well for some, although it's gone round for 1 or 2. I think there's been an incident of Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. He's dropped a long way back in that order as they made the way on out to the corner, and well, we'll get a replay of that when we can to explain. But right now, everyone in the front few rows of the field seems to have settled down nice and early. Oh, but we see a bit too wide. There's Brandon Dyer making his way up the inside of William Humphrey. So goes up through, and Brandon Dyer there takes that place nice and quickly there for Humphrey. He's not waiting around his Dyer, but meanwhile further back Milton Tomlinson-Dennis trying to make his way onwards here. And the Border Raceway STR Esports Drive dropped down to 20th from the 10th place start, but now knows the task that's ahead of him is just that little bit bigger. Went over the rise they do, and meanwhile Matthew Bacon is still battling with Ile Katonen and David Hutchinson, but even they will settle the differences in the end and stop being 3 wide for a brief moment. There's been a bit of drama further back, I do believe. We have had some difficulties for Samuel Clark, who's dropped them down. He's trying to turn right in towards 10. Froome at filling part for the first time, and on cold tyres as well. This is going to be far from easy, as Liam Fraser has got Chris Jennings there for close company. In fact, I think Fraser has found his way past Jennings over the mountain so far. We'll need to get that checked, because if so, he's done it through by the left-handers there, and that's incredibly brave. He now holds on to the position ahead of Jennings and Milton Tomlinson-Dennis. We start to see a bit of a split appearing in the field, as meanwhile all these drivers coming down into the braking zone. There's been a bit of a big incident further back. Robin Noel Brown's been involved in a bit of an altercation, as has Max Wheeler. We will get a replay of that as well, but something's gone further down the order. But meanwhile, right at the front of the order, Alex Fretwell leading the way, and the RLH driver right now under no pressure, but we can see some pressure building here as Ashley Coulton watches on for Mark Hutchinson and Tim Modig going side by side, and Hutchinson up the inside into that braking zone. He'll take that place off of Modig just like that. With a very smooth move there from him, no doubt about it. As well, actually Koopman there carries all the momentum out the corner, but a bit too much momentum and not enough road width in the end, so not a perfect combination. As Brandon Dyer now battling with Dan Edvardsen. Edvardsen on the inside is BMW, and we'll try and make sure the accurate driver doesn't have it all his own way, and in the end he'll be able to do so for the moment, all the Dane. But we can see the Britain now looking to the outside of Hell's Corner. Now, will he be able to make it work? We'll have to see, because the devil will be in the detail here. And the answer is no, he can't. And Dan Barton in the end will be having heavenly ambitions, and he'll be hoping he can make his way even further away now. But that BMW, for all the straight line speed it's got out the corner, that Acura is an absolute monster. And meanwhile, Hayden Miller versus Ryan Nickerson, that's going on behind here. So the elite drivers right now, they're all scrapping. They're costing each other time by doing so, but they all want the places nice and early. And in the end, Nickerson looking at the inside of Miller. Can he get it done? He does. He makes his way back to the 10th in the elite class, and in the end, Miller does have to back off there. There's no space to work with. Further back, Reece Saunders, he's fallen back a little bit with Matthew Croft right behind him. So Saunders hasn't had the perfect start to this race. If anything, he's been muscled down behind some of the elite drivers. And now with Croft there with him, this might be one of those races whereby he's got to try and regroup and figure out how he's going to pick his way through, given how difficult overtaking is to do. From him, looking even further back, David Hutchinson back from side by side with Jamie Bardwell, going through 6 into 7, and Hutchinson gets that place off in there. Nice and easy move there from David Hutchinson. Everyone backed off. Hold up. Mark Hutchinson's had a bit of a moment there with the Gravelman filming. He's just rejoined. He's rejoined parallel to the racing line. Well done to him for that rejoin. That was very well done. And was he brought himself back on? He dropped out to 14th place. So Hutchinson's had a play with the Sandcastles. And was he come down in towards Forest Elbow right now? We hope he's got the grip on the tyres. So you have the company of Reece Saunders, his teammate, directly behind him. Albeit he won't want to exceed him for the simple reason that means he's quite a way back, and he's at the very back now of the top 10 of the elites. He's in 11th of the class and he's 14th overall. But as he's dropped, meanwhile trying to make his way forward is now Danny Phillips. Looking up the inside to outside here, Nicholas Carlson. Carlson will not defend this in the end. All the way to the apex, he lets it go. He makes it hard for Phillips, and he also makes it a bit hard for himself. But I think they're deciding at the last minute, actually, there's no point fighting with the elite driver, so I'm only going to cost myself time when he can bring me closer to Katios by comparison. So I think Nicholas Carlson now getting the right name of the game. Coming across that timeline onto lap number 3, and we're after 2 laps of racing. Here's your rundown of your top 15. It's Alex Fretwell who leads over on Pro, ahead of Mike Barber, your elite lead of Aquarium Motorsport, behind the RLH machine. Then we do have Fortis Katios sat in 3rd place right now for Split Track Esports. Second of your pros, ahead of Danny Phillips, second of your elite. Next, the 3rd of your pros, Nicholas Carlson, ahead of the 3rd of your elite, Tim Modi. That's your top 6. Then 7th place is Ashley Cooten for Relentless Racing, ahead of Jesper Svensson. But then Barton making it a Relentless Racing sandwich with plenty of Heracles Performance filler. And then we do have none other than Brandon Dyer round off the top 10 at the moment, having cleared William Humphrey, who sits on 11th, with Ryan Nickerson, Hayden Miller, Mark Hutchinson in that train. Reece Saunders at the back of it in 15th place, with Matthew Croft and Thomas Pugh for close company as well. So right now your top 17 very close together, and then we do have a 2-second gap to Liam Fraser, who is now starting to bolt away from Chris Jennings. As we do say hello there to none other than what is the father there of William Humphrey. And well, to apologise there for confusing the username. I hope you're doing well, good sir. As the drivers make their way all around right now, we also say hello there to V9EDD. So it's an epic last lap effort with regards to that battle for the win right at the end of the race. And we've still got a long way to go before the end of this one, as Matthew Bacon, looking up the inside there, Villa Katonen, thinks about it and then decides it's not worth it, but he might get another chance here towards Skyline. Will he go for it? No, he lifts off there, because at the end of the day, too wide from Skyline into Dipper. Well, you've got to be absolutely bold and brazen to be able to get that done. Some would say you have to be mad to do it, but to be fair, we don't judge. Comes up down the hill. Well, right now, nose to tail between all them. And Bacon here having to look up the inside of Katonen. I think that's more because he's getting pressure from Sinkevicius and Bardwell behind. And you see this queue of cars really building up. And David Hutchinson, meanwhile, a bit further back here, not trying to get too close and give himself a bit more visibility of the road. But Katonen here now going to the outside as he makes his way over the crest. This will be to give him the inside of the first part of the chase. Contact there between himself and what was the machinery of Bacon. And well, in the end, Matthew Bacon does get through. So does Sinkevicius now, going all the way around the outside. And so does Bardwell. Does he not? No, he does not. There's contact between himself and Katonen. And I think he did. Jamie Bardwell perhaps was a bit eager. And Katonen couldn't just make his car disappear. And Bardwell turned on around there. Well, both drivers have an interpretation of how that happened. But unfortunately, it hasn't worked out, particularly for Bardwell, and sent him down the order. Meanwhile, Mark Johnson trying to break away from James Howarth here, who's keeping Lewis Kenyon and Nathan Anstis at bay. Villa Katonen into pit lane with the damage he's picked up from that contact. And well, I'm not surprised at those speeds when they've made contact. A small tap actually will feel a very gruesome one, as all the headlights come onto the cars here and the sun is gradually setting. We also do say hello there to Jared Love. And well, unfortunate for Jared, it's not quite worked out today in the race there. There's been an incident earlier on, which we will get a replay of at some point, as the racer does attempt to calm down, albeit saying that right now, well, I'll tell you one thing, none of these drivers are trying to calm down whatsoever. We'll see what's to come as they all make their way up the hill once more. Well, back to Ryan Nickerson we go. And and he has ready company. As the car into the barrier, it goes out. That's Dan Edvardsen. No, it's not. Yes, it is Dan Edvardsen. In the end, he's towed immediately to the pit lane, and Edvardsen gets it wrong out of turn 6 into 7. My goodness, the car just being sent to the wall. I think that was of his own volition. I wonder if he's just simply mistimed his steering input at turn 6 and therefore propelled himself straight to the apex wall turn 7, and the car's gone spinning on around. If so, that's a disaster, no doubt about it. But without further ado, we take a trip back in time and take a look at the start of the race. Now, this was your race start, and the driver in particular we want to focus on was Bilton Tomlinson Dennis, because it all went a bit wrong with the World of Racing with STR Esports driver, and as he went green with the field, what exactly did go wrong? So he found himself in the end just ahead of a 4 wide behind. Well, that's intriguing. And then he found himself in the 4 wide. Brandon Dye right at the inside there and contact. And well, Dye would argue couldn't disappear. Tomlinson Dennis will be fuming. He's got to turn into the corner at some point, and that's what sent him sideways. So that explains what happened there. A 4 wide with 2 other drivers as well who we couldn't quite discern. That's why Tomlinson Dennis fell down the order. Then we had this from Noel Brown in the opening lap as we continue to take a trip back through time. A bit of contact there, side by side between Frank Buyerson and number 1 drivers. I think that was one of the SimRacing Team Lowlands cars. And Noel Brown lost it coming down Skyline, and in the end the car going to spin across the road. Everyone did very well to put the brakes on, apart from what was there now was Samuel Clark, who got it wrong at the braking, and Clark ended up making that contact. This is what the on-board looked like from Samuel Clark's car, the Dexterous Motorsport SemX driver. So making his way out of Philemy. Now the yellow flags will not wave until now. So at this point he sees everyone braking, and I think if for Samuel Clark, he's made an error of thinking that he might be able to sweep on through and just let the car roll to a stop and get the brakes on rather than put the brakes on immediately. I think he was worried if he broke any earlier, he would have lost the rear of the car, which is understandable in a Porsche 992 rear engine rear wheel drive. We then had this for James Howarth only moments later. And the Dexterous Motorsport SemX driver was making his way down in towards what was Murray's Bend. Up the inside of him was Jamie Bardwell. And in the end, Jamie Bardwell made his way for... Oh, my good Lord! And what on earth was that? I think that was now Benedictus Sigavicius coming in like a missile there. And will hit the side of Howarth's car. I don't think Howarth will be too pleased about that one, because Howarth lost out to so many drivers and almost lost out to Nathan Anstis. We then had this for Jared Love on lap number 2. This was over the course of turns 5 and 6. The DC Motorsport driver making his way through the right into left. Missed his apex there, rear of the car stepped loose. Oh my good Lord, it's the barrier, and that is a nasty knot there, and immediately that car would not be going anywhere thus. Nick Stubb, meanwhile, had this happen to him on lap number 3, and well, the Vulcan passes by Glass Tip Racing driver right towards the back of a long line of cars, including now, I believe, the car of Frank Buyerson. Same place, same mistake as Jared Love. In the end, the car just cutting loose with him, and well, all in tears and bits for him. And then we had this huge one for Dan Edvardsen. Only months later, did he have the exact same thing happen to as well? I get the feeling, yes, he did. Yes, he did, because he lost it coming out of turn number 6, and in the end, the relentless racing machine just going completely all around. And, well, the Dane absolutely in the barriers there and all in bits. But without further ado, we come back to your live races as we do, where it's getting very furious there between William Humphrey and Hayden Miller. Well, I'll try and get a replay of what exactly happened between them, because we've caught the story midway in progress. As they come down, well, William Humphrey's front bumper is hanging off the car right now. No headlights working on it. Miller's tucked in the inside there, and around the outside goes. Where's Matthew Croft and Bart Hutchinson? So I think there's been a bit of war between these drivers, and well, we might be able to explain exactly what has caused that very shortly, but things will change. We go away for replays, and it all kicks off. Reece Saunders up the inside there of Hayden Miller. So right now, the Altitude 3 Esports drive 5th in the Pro class. He just wants to move forward at this point and get with Matthew Croft, but it's not going to be easy to do so when you've got all elite drivers around you right now who are all focused on their own race. Speaking of elite drivers, Ryan Nickerson trying to make the move here on William Humphrey. Heading up the rise, and the split track esports driver will get ahead, and William Humphrey right now in a very damaged car. He is losing the time hand over fist there. Humphrey's got no straight line speed whatsoever, and well, that's explaining why he's losing out so much, but I do wonder how he's picked up that damage in the first place. Has he hit a car? Has he hit a barrier? Or is it both? Well, if so, definitely an instant right now. I think Humphrey is slowly making his way around. There goes the front bumper. It falls off the car. Sigavicius is almost collecting that front bumper. And well, Humphrey does park up. He's going to tow to the pit. Something is broken on that car. And well, with that, his chances of making it back-to-back wins here today have broken as well. But as we do continue on with those drivers who've yet to find fault, well, we do see Matthew Croft under pressure. Mark Hutchinson right now, all the way through Skyline, into the dipper. There's no way in for the Altitude 3 Esports drive. He will just have to wait his turn as he comes down to this Forest Elbow. And then there will be an opportunity. That's what we're hoping. Albeit, of course, hopes and dreams, very different from the reality. Right, another number 19 driver here doing a solid job for full place in the Pro class. We do see Ryan Nickerson there taking a bit of the barrier with him and leaving some of his Ferrari's paint on the exit wall of Forest Elbow. He's getting good at that, to be fair to him. He knows the absolute limits, so they're now to push beyond them. But Croft right now, with the run he needs, he's looking quite safe there in that 10th place overall, at least at this time. But as he gets ready to make his way down in towards the chase, we do look to Nickerson behind, who in the end doesn't go for a move, and he waits and bides his time, and that gives us some time to take a look back at what exactly happened between Hayden Miller and William Humphrey. As Bart Hutchinson there goes a bit wide coming out turn 22, he'll go defensive versus Nickerson, and he will be safe at least for now. So back between Humphrey and Miller as they made their way down the stretch, and well, it looks like Humphrey's car was all okay initially, so Hayden Miller on the brakes, went up the inside, too wide they entered, and in the end it was elbows out between the two, and that is what caused William Humphrey's front bumper to come off. Also the fact he had the impact with the exit curve there, or the apex curve of turn number 22, and suddenly I did so much damage to Humphrey's car, and that explains it all. Well, ladies and gents, with a small touch, but a big set of consequences there for William Humphrey in particular, and well, understandably right now, he probably won't want to be talked to as soon as he gets out of the car. He'll want some time to himself. But meanwhile, we come back to the very front of the field, and as we do, Alex Fretwell, your leader right now, pro and overall, well, he's still trying to hold off Mike Barber, and well, can he make history here today for this season? Because so far this season, we have yet to see a pro driver take an overall win. We've come close, but we've never quite seen it happen. But can he make the magic happen here today? Mike Barber right now, the elite leader, will try and make that magic not happen, and indeed we have some magical moments for the lower class, and the split has been able to find its way to a victory. Indeed, many of you may remember, of course, in Season 9, the infamous Rosano moment, what was the split D visit there, whereby we had, in our mixture of Premier and Evo, an all-Evo overall podium in race number 2, where the conditions were so abhorrent, and all the Evo drivers have got it absolutely right, whereas your Premier leaders have got it wrong on setup, and that's how it all unfolded there. That's definitely worth checking out if you get the chance to, because that race you could not have made it up. But to be fair, this season so far, you have not have made up all the twists and turns that we have seen here in Split A, and it has been a very eventful season for all the right reasons. But right now, Danny Phillips here for all the right reasons, wants to pick his way past Katios, wants to get a bit close to Barber, but the McLaren, they're not quick enough coming down the straight. That's why the weaknesses on the McLaren is the fact it's a bit down on straight line speed. It is definitely much more nimble in the corners, particularly direction changes, so chicanes, but what it absolutely loves, so long as they're not too low speed. At very low speed, the McLaren does struggle a little bit, given the way the aero has been set up on the car, and also the chassis, the way it has been pitched forward. But coming in towards turn number 1, well, right now Phillips pitches his way forward on the brakes, and Katios in turn responds in kind by letting him take the place off him initially, but now making the way up the mountain straight, where we can see the Ferrari getting closer and closer, albeit just holding back as he almost takes the camera off the rear of the car. And well, right now he's trying to say to Phillips, look, just hold your line, don't do anything silly here, because I'm not going to fight you too hard. And Danny Phillips will take that third place overall, and now he has a clear shot at chasing down the elite win, and what will be his first elite win of the season. Albeit Mike Barber's trying to go for that as well, so both drivers right now will eagerly want it, but which one is going to get it, as Katios now has the question of Nicholas Carlson behind him in the battle for second in a row. Tim Modig, third place elite driver right now, does have Ashley Cooten behind him, and Brandon Dyer as well. Oh, that was a brush to wall there, was that? Katios making a brush to wall, I think it was. Well, he's been able to survive it at least for now as the green driver, but that's going to give some confidence to Nicholas Carlson. There might be some damage now on that Ferrari in front of him. Meanwhile, we continue to focus on the Modig, Cooten, Dyer battle, and well, into Skyline. Brandon Dyer there, almost teasing it out. We ride on board here, the front bumper of the Inter-Racing Team 158, getting so close, that car in front. Indeed, right now, if he was any closer, he'd be touching from bumper to bumper, and well, it would be contact. Coming down in towards turn number 17 here, you can see how close he wants to be from every apex, and on every straight he wants to be able to gain that slipstream like no other. But we still do have 14 minutes of this race to go right now. There's still time to make places, but he's got to start picking off soon, because the problem is the longer this race goes, the more the tyre wear will accumulate, and we do know this Acura can be a bit of a handful, the less tyre life it's got compared to some of its peers. But down the stretch he comes, this time nowhere near close enough there, and you can see that Cooten in the tow of Modig will be safe. Therefore, they're going to stay as they were. But further back, Benedictus Sinkevicius looking for a move here, and Chris Jennings is going to go up the inside for the turn 21. And in the end, the 188 Lamborghini makes that place up, now up to 16th place overall, still 11th in the elite class. But I think he'll be happy at the fact that he has made a decent recovery of this so far, having gained the best part of 17 places overall, 3 in class. But now his next type will be an elite driver, it will be Thomas Pugh. Meanwhile, Mark Hutchinson, he's under pressure from Hayden Miller and Ryan Nickerson. They're still fighting over 7th place in elite. It's definitely getting darker and darker here right now, with the sun setting at a rather gracious rate. Well, at the very back of that camera angle, you did see Reece Saunders there, the 5th place pro driver, the 2nd member of Altitude 3M Esports in this running order, but right now playing a bit more of a role as an observer rather than an aggressor. But heading up the hill, we do say hello there to Ben Massey, and I hope you're doing well, good sir. well, in terms of how the race has been going, it's been fast, it's been furious, it's been frantic, and we've still got another 12.5 minutes this second race of the day to go. And we've joined just at the right time, Ben, so still plenty to unfold here. As meanwhile, well, hold up a second, there's been a move here in towards the cutting, and as Brandon Dyer's got ahead of Ashley Coupland and ahead of Tim Modig all in one go, as Sonny Modig's going to lose out here to Jesper Svensson. So there's all been change of foot, and well, we'll have to get a replay of how exactly that's happened, because Brandon Dyer's gained 2 places at the price of 1 quarter by looks of things. You don't normally see that being done, but in the end he's made it happen. And Jesper Svensson, meanwhile, now will be very grateful for the fact that he's been able to come through with them. Modig's fallen a long way back, and I wonder where he's made a complete mistake of that corner. Brandon Dyer now will try and break away. His next target is Nicholas Carlson, 2 seconds up the road, and we get a quick look back exactly as to how he made that move. So this was heading up towards Griffin's Bend, and first it was Modig versus Coupland. Side by side they went all the way through turn number 2. Coupland went a little bit deep there, so that opened up the door to Brandon Dyer, who then looked around the outside. He got it immediately, and well, Coupland backed off, and then Brandon Dyer went all in under braking here versus Modig. 2 wide they entered the cutting, 2 wide they exited, and the Acura driver there on the outside line was able to get better traction, and Modig hitting the apex curb at turn 5 high. In the end, it wasn't going to work out. And Jesper Svensson, what a brave move there to add himself to that order of places gained by drivers on Tim Modig. But coming on back, well, there's even more to be played out here, as we do see a change of foot. So that is going to be Ryan Nickerson getting ahead of Matthew Croft, and Mark Hutchinson and Hayden Miller still holding their ground from each other. Right now, Matthew Croft falling backwards here to the back of this elite group, and now your full place pro driver, he's in some friendly company, albeit it's a rival because it's Rhys Saunders behind him, and now they'll be fighting over full place in pro to the very end of this race. Fastest lap of the race has just been set by this man, Benedictus Sinkevicius, who is absolutely flying right now. Of course, he was your pole sitter today, and understandably, you would expect him to be the fastest driver out there. And the Vulcan Motorsports 1 driver right now, or 9. If he can't win the race, he's at least going to be the fastest driver out there, and see how many places he can pick off. Thomas Pugh is going to be his first target then of elite tries to overtake. As he stays nice and close here, coming all the way through Griffin's Bend. Well, what's it going to be? Will it be a move on the inside here in towards the cutting? And if he's going to go for it, it's going to be from quite far back, but he is going to go for it, lunges it up the inside, and in the end, well, Pugh sees it coming, leaves the door wide open, and lets it go. But meanwhile, in terms of places being let go, we have had Danny Phillips get ahead of Mike Barber coming into turn 7 and 8. So Phillips is now your elite leader. We'll get a look back at that shortly, but Barber has let that one go, and Alex Fretwell now is the only driver between him and the overall win. As Fotis Katios still has Nicholas Carlson behind. Now, a question being asked there by Ben Massey in the YouTube chat, which is, does GT3 have inters or just pro and elite? Well, we do have 4 classes, however, it's over 2 splits. You're tuning into Split A, which is your elite and pros for this season, and meanwhile, Split B, the parallel broadcast that's going on at the same time right now, has your Premier and your Evo drivers. And in the pecking order, it's elites at the very top, then your pros, then your Premiers, and then your Evos. Hopefully that fills you in quite nicely, Ben. But thank you for the question. And as our drives carry on, well, 10 minutes left on the clock, and right now, small moves being made by some. Hayden Miller here trying to look for a big move on Mark Hutchinson, but as close as he dares to dream to be, can he outbrake the Ford Mustang there in his Aston Martin? The answer is no. As Hutchinson put himself right on the inside then, simply saying that you don't come through. But as we jump on board with the Scotsman Vulcan Motorsports 2, looking one way then the other. Outside, can he get it done in towards Murray's Bend? We've seen several drivers try this around the outside. It's never quite worked, including Brandon Dyer right at the end versus William Humphrey on the race number 1. And Miller learning there the fact on the outside you will just gradually run out of road if you try to make that happen. So he has to wait and now look for a run up the mountain straight. That Ford Mustang, of course, has got so much power in the top end. And he builds up the revs right now. And Miller, as close as he can be, he's never going to quite outrun that Ford Mustang, unless he's able to get the mother of all runs, which he might just be able to do here. And going around the outside in towards Griffin's Bend, that's going to be the challenge. Matthew Croft, meanwhile, has had to come into the pit lane due to some damage picked up on the car after and off track. So that's released Rhys Saunders to move it up into full place in the Pro Class, slightly off camera. It's gone wrong for Croft, but right now for Hayden Miller, he's still trying to find his way past Mark Hutchinson. And he's going to go up the inside. He goes for it in the end. Hutchinson sees it coming. It's contact, and Hutchinson sent to the barrier. Does he get it restarted? He does, just in the nick of time. So we can see Sinkevicius here now looking around the outside, and Mark Hutchinson will be fuming at that, but he'll be grateful the fate's been able to keep going. He hasn't had to tow because the car was very quickly righted, and in the end, well, definitely a bit of contact there. And Miller right now in a car that's seen a couple of bruises in this one, but he's still not broken. And Nickerson and Saunders will queue up behind him here and think, okay, can we now get involved? Given the fact that surely he's got to have some more damage on that car and it's going to cost him some speed. We do have a black flag on pit lane exit of Frank Buyerson. I wonder if he's been caught speeding in the pit lane. And if so, that's not going to help out his cause at all, as we do have a yellow flag for Mikey Story. And that's going to be for track limits, I suspect, making his way out of Skyline in towards the dip where he's cut track limits. A bit of an odd one, that. I think he's had to take the escape road there, or he's just mounted too much of the curb at turn at number 12 after Skyline. But either way, it's definitely not worked out for him, and we've burnt the slowdown in the nick of time before the Conrad Straight, so it's not going to hurt him anywhere near as much. But we take a quick look back at two of the big moments, including how we saw a change of a race leader in the elite class, and this was Danny Phillips on Mike Barber only moments ago. So this was coming out of the cutting. Oh, it was a brush with the wall there for Mike Barber, and then hopping over the curb at turn number 5. And Phillips here decided to go all or nothing for the move. Went up the inside, and well, a brave move there for the dexterous Motorsport car driver. But when are you going to get another opportunity like that? He had to seize it, and he absolutely nailed it. But then we had this big moment for was Mark Hutchinson only moments later. Ryan Nickerson was on the back of this, and I think we get the on-board here for Nickerson. And, well, Miller on the inside there. They both turned in. A small tap to the inside of Hutchinson's car by Miller. And, well, Ryan Nickerson was able to pick up the place and just avoid being caught up in the drama. So that explains what happened to Miller and Hutchinson. But back to your live racing we come, and we've still got a bit more time. Because as we look to your leader, Alex Fretwell, leading by 3.5 tenths here. Your pro leader overall, trying to hold off two elite drivers behind. He would love to make sure that he does not become an overall winner today. He does not become the first pro driver this season to take an overall win. But right now, can he just hold on to that little bit longer? He'll be hoping he can. And, well, understanding Phillips and Barber, they've got their own fight on. With Mike Barber trying to come back after that small error at what was at the cutting, but it could have been so much bigger, that error. It was not. Going for a Skyline down toward the dipper once again, looking back behind. Ashley Koopman and Jesper Svensson, they continue to push each other along, and Svensson right now really riding the rear of Koopman's car, and as they make the way off, well, it's now going to be about that Ford Mustang driver needing to get a bit closer through Forest Elbow, and that way he can outrun the Porsche on the straight, which is where he should be the strongest. But out the corner he comes, half a second the gap there on exit. It's not the most ideal run, in fact, being that far back at the moment. He may get close off right at the very end, but he'd have to be very brave on the brakes to do it. And the problem is that Mustang is a very heavy car under braking compared to the Porsche, and that's why it does normally have a tendency to understeer into the braking zone. So if you are able to get it stopped under heavy braking, you're going to lean very heavily into the ABS, and you will overheat those front brakes and with it those tyres. No change for him at the moment as quick as that. And further back down the order, we do look to Danny Cilliers, who's battling with Nathan Anstis. We're looking at Anstis in particular as he tries to chase after Cilliers. James, however, right in front of them. And Howard's just had a bit of a moment with the wall, and in making that contact, he's lost some momentum. Well, as we do see Anstis lurking around the outside of Cilliers here. Cilliers does have the draft of the Dexterous Motorsports machine, which is now going to be gifted to Anstis here to get the two of them to fight each other. In the foreground, we just had Mark Johnson pass none other than David Hutchinson. But here we can see Howard going defensive versus Cilliers, and Anstis looking up the inside now. And, well, gets it done there. No, he does not. As in fact, on the inside, and in the end, Danny Cilliers has full confidence in his abilities. And Augustus Dablevicius here is going to try to go around the outside now down towards Murray's Bend. So what Anstis was looking for was 11th place in the pro class, but he may just have been relegated all the way down into 14th as Dablevicius does go around the outside, but it's a spin for Danny Cilliers coming out to the final corner. It sends him around, but that's not a mandatory toe zone. If he can get it turning, he can keep going, but he hits the barrier. It's a toe to the pit, and it's all gone very wrong there for Danny Cilliers when it was looking so right. And now, well, Nathan Anstis will have not lost 3 places, he'll have lost 2 instead, but still, the ground he's lost, he won't be too pleased about that as they make the way up the hill for what will be the third from final time. We do see Nathan Anstis getting close here. He looks to the inside. Does he go for it? No, he backs off just that little bit as we do say hello. There's Insane. And I do believe cheering on none other than Jesper Svensson. Speaking of Svensson, here he is. And right now the Heracles performance driver, 5th in elite and 8th overall. Still on the back of Ashley Coulton here. He's not quite been able to fight with the relentless racing driver after losing the place. But understandably, if he was to bring home this 5th place, combined with his previous result earlier today, he would be taking, I believe, his season best score from a given round. So the results combined together. And as a reminder for the uninitiated, in these 2 30-minute sprint race rounds, the points achieved in total across the two races can be the equivalent of a race win in our single 60-minute races, whereby you have 100 points up for grabs in total. So 50 for the win in both races. races. So you need to be very consistent across both races here to get the maximum points. It's not a case that you get 100 for just winning one of the two. We don't double up the points in these rounds. We halve them in each of the races to add it up to the normal amount. But right now, forget about the points. Think about the big prizes, because that's what Danny Phillips needs to do here, as he's all over the back of Alex Fretwell. 2 laps to go. And right now, your leader holding on for dear life here for Racing League Hub, or RLH. As he gets ready to go in towards the Hell's Corner, named aptly, of course, for motorcycle races in the early days of racing at Bathurst, and the infamous tree that you see them make the way past there. Well, the idea was if a motorcyclist went off the road, they'd go into the tree, and, well, there's many a tale of a motorcyclist passing away there, and they'd be sent straight to hell. That's how it got its name in folklore. And meanwhile, Alex Fretwell right now will be thinking it could be heavenly to win. But right now, he's got to go for the hell firstly of Danny Phillips being right behind him, and Mike Barber there as well. But Phillips, all the speed he's got in the corners in that Dexterous Motorsports McLaren. You can see on the straights the car really struggling to move forward, looking around the outside there. Meanwhile, it's a big look up the inside of Brandon Dyer on what is thought is Katios in the rear of the picture. So Katios makes that move, and, well, in the end, it's not going to work out for him, because Brandon Dyer is going to make it back on him, and Brandon Dyer moves up into 4th place, and now he's only got the 2 elite drivers in front of him and separated him from what will be making a win instead of 2nd place in the 2nd race of the day. Can Dyer make some magic happen here? He hasn't got long left in that Acura, but to be fair, he's got so much pace at his fingertips in the Inter-Racing team car. It's understandable why he's looking so aggressive. Well, of course, he does have a little bit of cloud hanging over him with regards to an incident earlier on today. Well, he won't be dwelling on that. We can't dwell on that either. That's in the past. We're here in the present as they head down into the braking zone for turn at number 18. Mike Barber right now holding on, but Brandon Dyer right there behind, and you can see coming off of the rear bumper for a brief moment. And well, the colour by numbers Quatermass Motorsport machine right now hoping that the toe of Danny Phillips will keep it safe. And you can see this Acura, the 3rd car in the line of the elite drivers, picking up what is a 3rd piece toe. It's not going to work out there. In fact, he'll be equal on speed as they get towards VMAX and getting ready to go onto the brakes here, coming in towards the chase. But it's going to be Dyer up the inside. Here he goes to 1. He gets it stopped in time. The front disc absolutely glowing red hot, and with 1.5 minutes left on the clock before Murray's Bend, you know there's 1 more lap to go. And, well, ladies and gents, Brandon Dyer can take 1 on the penultimate lap, and ensure he can get the final 1 on the final lap. But here we go for Katios up the inside of what is now Barber. He can't quite get it done, so he waits, but this is going to build momentum now for Nicholas Carlson, who tries to make it 3 wide across the line. It's staggered 3 wide in towards Hell's Corner. He goes, and Nicholas Carlson goes to win. They're going to make contact. They do. They go sideways, and then Katios' car goes very sideways. And, well, in the end, where has it gone? And the answer is, I can't see it. Or where is it? There it is. In fact, it has come back on the road after it disappeared for a brief moment. So Katios survives that, but falls to 3rd place in the pro class. And when the end, Nicholas Carlson was never going to give it up. But understandably, well, both drivers there, I think, will be having a talking to after the race. But meanwhile, let's hold fire on talking about them, because we look back to the front. And right now, Alex Fretwell will be hoping the 2 drivers behind him just continue to fight. As you can see, Brandon Dyer there decides not to dive up the inside this time in towards what is the cutting. Instead, he holds his ground. But Danny Phillips trying to hold on a little bit longer as we ride aboard with the Inter-Racing team driver who needs to pick his way past the car in front of him. Oh, he hits the barrier there, coming through turn number 7. And Brandon Dyer right now pushing so hard at this point, but he's driving beyond his limits now. He wants this win. He desperately wants it. But the problem is Danny Phillips has not been in this position all season. And now all he's got to do is hold on and get the best possible exit out of Forest Elbow. But Brandon Dyer, you can see the bravery, but also the ballsiness he's having here. He's absolutely attacking the corners. He's carrying so much more speed through the dip right now in towards Forest Elbow. Does he go for it here potentially? The answer is going to be no, but he'll go out wide a little bit and get a nice early switchback. But Dyer, in the end, cannot make the move because Phillips parks on the apex and says, if you're going to try that, I'll just make it slow for all of us. And now on to Conrad they come. We can see Fretwell's going to gift the toe there to McLaren behind him. He wants to be safe in the lead of this race. Fretwell right now, of course, potentially to make history for this season and being the only pro driver to take an overall win. The clock strikes 0 and they know it's only 3 corners and the finish line as they come down to the braking zone here, and Fretwell right now holds the middle of the road. Meanwhile, Phillips goes defensive on the outside. He makes it a rolling roadblock here. Brandon Dyer tries to go one way, then the other. He can't quite make it happen. Now down towards the final corner here, and Phillips goes defensive to the inside. Dyer looks all the way out the inside. He can't quite find it. Fretwell is safe. Phillips goes defensive, and Alex Fretwell will take victory over and in the pro class here today, ladies and gentlemen. And Danny Phillips, who takes the elite win his first of the season. Brandon Dyer becomes back-to-back second place finisher ahead of Mike Barber, who rounds up the elite podium ahead of Ashley Coutland. We get Svensson, Tim Modig and Hayden Miller completing the top 8. Here's the runner-up spot for Nicholas Carlson in pro, just ahead of Fotis Katios after their altercation at the start of the last lap. They complete your top 10 with Ryan Nickerson taking 11th place just ahead of Reece Saunders. Then it will be Benedictus Sinkevicius, who recovered to 13th place in. Well done to him, and what a recovery, all the way from 33rd ahead of Thomas Ploeg, and then it will be Mikey Story who rounds off that top 15 with a 5th place finish in the end, showing that he did have the pace here today, but unfortunately it didn't go well in qualifying whatsoever. Chris Jennings took 16th ahead of Wesley Van Rens, and your top 20 was completed by Matthew Bacon, Lewis Kenyon and Mark Johnson. And then we did see David Hutchison in 21st place, just ahead than James Howarth with Nathan Anstis, Menno Blom, and then Mark Hutchison completing your top 25. Matthew Croft's gone around there, and I think right now might have had a bit of a contact with another driver as Ross Young makes his way to his finish line in 16th place in Pro, 28th overall, head of Mark De Vries, and then Ville Katonen. Well, he's got a bit of time here. It's not been a happy day for the Beowulf Racing team driver, but to be fair, given how unwell he's been feeling, the fact that he's finished both races and got some points on the board, that in itself deserves a round of applause. No doubt about it, ladies and gents, because I can imagine that right now he's been absolutely driving against the brick wall of his health, and well done to him, finishing 30th there, 18th in class for the Beowulf Racing team. And then behind him, the last of your lead lap finishers, it is going to be Liam Fraser there in 31st, 19th of your pros. But goodness me, what a conclusion to this race. And as Alex Fretwell cools things on down for Team RLH, he'll be absolutely ecstatic in the car in the fact that he has finally taken his first pro win of the season, and what's more, he has taken his first overall win of the season. He has something that no other pro driver for this season has, which is an overall win in the bag. And Danny Phillips as well, as he makes the round down here, your elite winner joining the pro winner in that cool down. Well, both of them have deserved it, and Phillips had to hold off an absolutely ostentatious and aggressive Brandon Dyer, and to be fair to Brandon, he was giving it fair, and Danny Phillips was equaling him every step of the way. As we do see Cryfuels there saying congrats Danny, in reference to Danny Phillips I suspect, and the Disastrous Motorsports Kumar driver. Well, I wonder if we'll get a word of him after today's racing, because I get the feeling he'll be absolutely high on that result, and well, I can't blame him for that whatsoever. But as they all cooling down, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here we are, ladies and gentlemen. And as we can see, it was Alex Fretwell who took the overall win in our second race of the day. Started on pole and never let it go for Team RLH. He was your pro winner ahead of your elite winner of Dexterous Motorsports Kumar's Danny Phillips, who in the end made his way up through the order early on, picking up a couple of places, and in particular found his way past Mike Barber when he needed to. And after that, he was still under pressure from Barber, and then he was from Brandon Dyer, the man who rounded off the overall podium for the Inter Racing team. Mike Barber just missed out on what was the third place spot on the overall podium, but he did secure his first elite class podium of the season with that fourth place for Quatermass Motorsport, put on a great drive there, even when it went slightly wrong out of the cutting, and Ashley Cooten was just behind him in fifth there for Relentless Racing. It was 2 tenths back to Jesper Svensson for Heracles Performance, who has his best day in the office so far this season with his combined results, ahead of Tim Modic, who did very well as well today for Sim Coach, and Hayden Miller there, a frustrating day, particularly after that contact between himself and William Humphrey midway through this race, 8th on the road in for Vulcan Motorsports 2. Not the way he's wanted to go, and indeed Vulcan Motorsports Day have not had a great day in Australia. Nicholas Carlson took 9th place there, second of your pros, albeit with the spectre of the contact between himself and Fotis Katios into turn number 1. I'm sure they'll be talking about that one after the race, with Katios being relegated to the 10th place finish overall and third in the class of Split Strat Esports, just as his teammate of Ryan Nickerson, who could not quite make his way through, unlike in race number 1. And then we did see Reece Saunders there just off of the pro podium, but 4th in class, 12th for Altitude 3M Esports, head of Benedictus Sinkevicius, Thomas Pugh, and Mikey Story, who round off your top 15 there for Dexterous Motorsports Kumar from 37th to 23rd to 15th. And with that, picking up some very valuable points, being 5th in the pro class. And on Mikey Story today, definitely making sure it was a day of well-earned damage limitation. Chris Jennings took 16th just behind him for Active Sim Sport X, 6 seconds ahead of Wesley Van Rens. And it was Matthew Bacon, Lewis Kenyon, and Mark Johnson who completed your top 20. Outside the top 20, 21st went the way of David Hutchison for Axis Sport X ahead of James Howarth, the Dexterous Motorsport Zemex driver in 3 seconds ahead of Nathan Anstis, who after trying to find his way past what was James Howarth got relegated backwards and could not find a way back in the end, but the UK SimRacing Norris driver was just ahead of Menno Blom with Mark Hutchison in 25th. Matthew Croft took 26th there for Axis Sport Y with a late spin in the race costing him dear, but ahead of Jamie Bardwell, and then Ross Young, Mark De Vries and Ville Katonen completed your top 30, and outside that top 30 we then came to Liam Fraser in 31st, who didn't quite have as entertaining a race as race number 1, but the Moonshiners Racing Club driver was on the lead lap ahead of lap down finishers Frank Buyerson, who made it to the end of this one, unlike in race number 1. Also Max Wheeler there, and Augustus Dablavicius, who was 2 laps down ahead of Danny Cilliers. And then we did have retirement. So William Humphrey with the damage to the front of his car after that contact with Hayden Miller, and we also did see retirement. So Dan Edvardson, Nick Stubb, Milton Tomlinson Dennis, Jared Love, and also outside that top 40, Cy Anthony, Samuel Clark, Robin Noel Brown, Schubert Cardozo, Connor Spree, and Kyle Roy. But your last three not starting the race, as I've been informed. But coming to your class finisher positions, because this is where all the points are made or lost. And as we can see in the elite class, Danny Phillips, his first win of the season in elite, and what a win it was by 1.5 tenths at line for Dexterous Motorsports Kumar, fending off the charge of Brandon Dyer, who looked eager, looked keen, but he couldn't quite find a way through in his Acura. Behind the InterRacing team driver was Mike Barber, who rounded off that podium for Aquatic Mass Motorsport, his first podium of the season, and Brandon Dyer, of course, having his best 2 results of the season thus far. Ashley Cooper taking 4th place there for Relentless Racing, always on the march, just ahead of clerically performances Jesper Svensson, who completed the top 5, and Tim Modig there in 6th place, but doing well to hold off Hayden Miller for that position, with Miller taking home 7th. The Vulcan Motorsports 2 driver was just ahead of Ryan Nickerson for Split Strat Esports, who in the end had a 7/10 of the second gap to Benedictus Sinkevicius. The Vulcan Motorsports 1 driver doing well to pick up some points in race 2, but knowing the fact that it won't make up for race number 1, and Thomas Pugh there completed your elite top 10 for Axis SimSport X. It was 14 seconds back to Lewis Kenyon, best of the rest, ahead of Mark Hutchinson. We've been a lap down to Max Wheeler, and then we did have the retirements of William Humphrey, Dan Edvardson, Milton Tomlinson Dennis after his unfortunate opening couple of laps, and Connor Spree. Then coming to the Pro class, lastly, but by no means least, and Alex Fretwell, first win of the season for him in Pro for RLH by 4 seconds over Nicholas Carlson, who in the end fought hard to take that second. However, Fotis Katios also fought just as hard back. But for Katios, it was a 3rd place in the end for Split Strat Esports, a half a second behind, but both of them the best part of 7 attempts ahead of Reece Saunders for Altitude Frame Esports, who had a relatively quiet race number 2, but I suspect it was all to do with the fact that he was surrounded by elite drivers and had to let them go. In the end, the Altitude Frame Esports driver couldn't move forward, but Mikey Story definitely moved forward to a 5th place finish for Dexterous Motorsports Kumar, and it was Chris Jennings just behind him in 6th for Axis SimSport X, losing that 5th place in the closing laps. Wesley Van Rens took 7th there for 9 Pegasus Panther racing ahead of Matthew Bacon, with the Sim Coach driver comfortably ahead of Mark Johnson, and the Axis SimSport Y driver ahead of his sister team driver David Hutchison, who completed the top 10. James Howell was best of the rest in 11th place there, ahead of Nathan Anstis, with Menno Blomer in 13th, but didn't quite go right at the end of the race as SimRacing Team Lowlands driver, not quite able to repeat his heroics of VRL last time out, but he was ahead of Matthew Croft, and Jamie Bardwell completed the top 15. Behind the Phoenix Racing Red drive, it was Ross Young there for Dexterous Motorsport Zemix, ahead of Mark De Vries, with Villa Katonen and Liam Fraser completing your lead lap finishers, and it was a lap down for DNR Esports' Frank Buyuson, as it was also a lap or 2 down, in fact 2 laps down for Augustus Dablavicius, and also Danny Cilliers, and it was retirements for Nick Starb, Jared Love, Cy Anthony, Samuel Clark, Robin Noel Brown, Schubert Cardozo, a non-starter as well, as was Noel Brown, and also a non-start for Kyle Roy. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our rundown of the provisional results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and it concludes all the racing for here today at the Bathurst circuit. But of course, it doesn't quite conclude our broadcast, because we're going to take a 5-minute breather, and when we do return, it will be time for some post-round interviews of our volunteer drivers. What will they have to say about the brilliant battling action in the racing today here in Australia? Well, stay tuned, because we're going to find out very shortly. And it's lights out and away we go for our season opener as Tseard Ploeg gets a good start, but look alongside him and you'll see there Milton Tomlinson Dennis immediately go on the attack into the braking zone. 1 drive into the grass already, that's Mikey Story, but 3 wide they come into the opening corner. That's a bold move there. William Humphrey makes the place as they make the way through in towards turn number 2. I think the Altitude 3M Esports driver here might just be fancying his chances once again as they come into the braking zone now for turn number 1, and as they make the way from right into left, well, Hayden Miller here side by side with him. They'll go all the way through to turn number 3, and Saunders does take the place there. That's for overall position, not for pro position. Saunders is the pro leader, but he goes a bit deep there in 3 to the inside of 4 then, and Miller right now enjoying this. Saunders enjoying it. A little bit of rub and contact between the 2 of them, but nothing wrong with a bit of bump and grind between the 2 Ford, for the Ford and the Corvettes, the 2 Americans I should say. And
with those 2 Evo drivers in front of them, they're just, they're realistically in a completely different race. They're just a barrier up towards the likes of Rubino and Wendell. Oh, there's Rubino going off the road, and here comes James Boswell, past 1, past 2. This is a great little move from James.
Oh, and look behind him as well. Hardiak, up high, he decides to come back down low. But Denny Ploeg has really lost a lot of ground here. He's lost 7 places since the start of this race in that green Porsche. But look at this, for the lead, Hammond wants it. He's gone back down the inside. He got off the brakes again to let the car down the inside of Rob Mackay. And you said Rob was going to be clinging on at the front. And now He's clinging on to second. Great move by Lewis Hammond. Really good committed stuff. And look, down the inside, Richard White. He wants a piece of this in the Porsche. He's got James Bostock.
And it's lights out and away we go here as Mirko Bortolotti goes exactly on the green, and as they roar the way down towards turn number 1, Martin Statman side by side with him, but look behind, Tim Perry under pressure, Miguel Leon immediately as the Enosis Esports driver tries to put the pressure on. Further back we've got 3, 4 wide, they're all in the crush as they come through the opening bay. Look back for the rear of your second place runner, Statman, and Statman right now for the Gazex Racing team. What he's trying to do here, I think now, is just hold on to second, and if needed, he may have to act as a bit of a buffer and perhaps sacrifice a little bit of his race for the race leader here. Although Bortolotti, to be fair, I think might be holding some pace back, but here comes Lux in the tow, in towards what we roller coaster they come with the Virginian corkscrew. It's left into right very quickly here as they both make the way, and it's too wide on entry, but Lux gets ahead. It's up into second now, as it will be Martin Statman falling down to third, but Callum Lux does clear another one, and now only one car is between him and an opportunity of victory here tonight. Which is Perry going to make the move, or I'm going to have to make the move for him? Well, there's your answer. Perry's going to go on the inside here of Dean into the braking zone. Edwards gets to watch it from the popcorn seat view. Perry there being too wide on exit. Dean's going to try and hang around the outside. Does Edwards think about going up the inside as well? He gets himself ready for it in case there's contact, but there's not. Perry there being fair. Dean tucks back in behind. Lovely move there from Tim Perry. And I think meanwhile Beardsworth will hope they don't get close enough in time as Beardsworth's going to look up the inside. He goes all in, and it's from very far back. He gets it stopped, however, and Beardsworth there nails the move, but Tillerson's going to come back at him up the hill. Does he go in on the brakes here? This is bold to do it on the inside. No, he does not. And Brian Beardsworth at the end, he gets it wrong. He goes out wide at turn number 6. Tillerson's going to be too wide with him, but too wide they're going to turn 7. Tillerson goes on the switch back there. 9 is no way through, and in the end they come down towards turn number 8. Well, there Tillerson backs off. He lets Hutchinson go around the outside, but is it the right call? And so, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and it is time to kick off our post-race interviews. And who better to talk to first and foremost than from our overall winner of race number 2, the first pro to take an overall win this season, and a guy in general in pro today who's had a monster day of results. It's none other than Alex Fretwell, who now joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Alex. And well, what a day it's been. You've had a season so far where you've done reasonably well, but here today at Bathurst, you've absolutely led the way in the point score. And to top it all off, you're the only pro driver who's taken an overall win so far this season. How does that feel?
Yeah, wow. Didn't expect it, to be honest. It's the first race I've done in quite a few weeks, to be honest. Various circumstances always seem to fall on a Thursday. Should hopefully be back now for the rest of the season, and yeah, I don't think I'll top tonight, if I'm honest. I've done a little bit more practice than I usually do, obviously with the 12 hours coming up, so I think that helped. Got a good lap in quali early as well, so that let the pressure off a little bit, and yeah, obviously it's not really a real win obviously with the reverse grid, but yeah, from where I expected to be and where I was at the start of this season, I'll definitely take it.
Oh, 100%. I mean, we have massively missing you on the grid for a couple rounds, like you say. And, well, I do have to wonder whether that's perhaps fate aligning to say that if you were on the grid, you'd be too powerful for the pro grid. Joking aside, however, talking a little bit about qualifying, 13th overall, 3rd in class. A good qualifying session for yourself. Is this a circuit you gel with normally?
It can be. Yeah, it's... If you get into a flow, obviously, yeah, it's brilliant, and obviously done quite a few laps for the 12 hours, so it's obviously timed well with the GT series as well that we follow the calendar of. Yeah, I'm just sort of at one with this car at the minute, very ready for the 12 hours, and yeah, it's it was just getting that lap in early. I've had a few qualifying sessions where I've sort of had a few incidents or traffic, and then you end up chasing it towards the end and never quite works out. So yeah, I think I in the middle of qualifying I sat for 10 minutes and didn't do anything, just to sort of let it all sink in and then go and try again. But yeah, that was the key really, and then obviously lost a bit of ground at the start of race 1. Had a bit of a scuffle as well, so I think I dropped to about 17th at one point, and then a couple of incidents further ahead, and luckily slotted in that P15, which set up everything that happened in race 2.
Oh, 100%. And speaking of the scuffles in race number 1, of course, one of the big challenges here at Bathurst, and one of the reasons why it's such a loved circuit, is the fact that overtaking is primarily relegated to the straights or some very late braking into certain corners. And we did see you right in the thick of fighting with the likes of Matthew Croft and also, let's say, Hayden Miller and Thomas Pugh in race number 1. I mean, how was it fighting there? Did you have your places where you thought to yourself, you know what, I've got to go into this corner in particular because my Porsche's got the brakes, or was it just take your chances as they come?
Well, I'll be honest, I'd be surprised. I have to look back. I don't think I overtook anyone all night. I got the places back through people throwing it off the track. But yeah, in terms of defending, there were definitely a couple of corners that I knew were key. The hairpin onto the back straight, Conrad. I found a really nice tight line there, pretty much rubbing the wall and got them throttle nice and early. Obviously, Porsche is pretty decent on traction anyway, so making sure that was sort of spot on, and also out of turn 1, obviously, for another pretty long straight, just making sure I didn't take too much curb. And I knew it was only going to be, in the second race, definitely, I knew it was only going to be one mistake and they'd have me, because it was always sort of edging around that 0.2, 0.3 at its smallest. But yeah, Matthew in the first race was a cracking race. The only real problem I had was when one of the elites came through. It put you offline, and then for the next 3-4 corners, obviously it's just such a train. You just get hung out to dry. So I think I lost 4 places in that one move. But yeah, luckily got the 15 back, which was key.
Oh, 100%. And, well, you weren't left hanging out to dry in race number 2, of course. Starting on pole, set the pace early on, and we saw you lead every lap of the race, albeit Mike Barber was never letting you go. And when all the elites started to scrap behind you, I do have to wonder, were you hoping that perhaps they would take even more time out of each other?
Yes and no, because I didn't want to get complacent. You know, if you've got a few seconds, all of a sudden you start just mind wandering, and that it was pretty nice to just have that focus. But to be fair, for the time that Mike was behind me, it was pretty comfortable. Obviously, Porsche versus Porsche, strong and weak in the same areas, so felt pretty comfortable with that. Didn't know what to expect when Danny ended up behind me with the McLaren. It is a car I've drove a lot, so had a vague idea of sort of where he'd be strong, but Danny was just mega quick, and it literally came down to the last few laps, like holding him up in certain places, making sure it was safe, and then literally getting to the slow corners and getting it lined up and booting it, and just hoping for that half-second gap. Yeah, that was all there was to it, really.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you make it sound so simple, but the reality being, even the smallest of mistakes, and it could have all slipped out of your hands, but it didn't.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, now that you've picked up these great results today, and like you mentioned 8 months ago, that you might be able to be back on the grid for the remainder, or at least the majority of the rest of the season, can we expect you at the Nürburgring?
Is that next week? I'll be
Indeed
honest,
it
I've not
is.
kept up with the calendar. Yeah, should be there. Should be all good from now on. So yeah, hopefully more stuff for tonight. And I'll be honest, tonight the driving standards were incredible. Obviously, it makes a bit of a change when you're near the sharp end, but yeah, obviously just wheel-to-wheel racing, and everyone was nice and clean. No real sends or anything like that. So I think we've really settled into this season. It was a bit sketchy at a couple of tracks early in the season, but yeah, perfect tonight.
Oh, fantastic. Well, glad to hear you absolutely loved it out there. And just as we get ready to let you go, 2 final questions. Firstly, you mentioned moments ago the Bathurst 12 hours that is coming up. Will you be participating? If so, if there's a place where we can catch you participating or your team participating, where would it be?
Yes, I will be. I'm not entirely sure if we're doing anything stream-wise or anything like that, but I'm sure we'll drop it in the SRR server if we get that far.
All fair play.
We're not great at the planning side of things. We just wing it.
There's nothing wrong with winging it, to be fair. And then lastly, I must ask, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
Just the guys at 9PP. I know I'm still RLH on the standings and everything, but yeah, sort of. I think after round 1 this season, we've done a bit of a merger, and join with them. So obviously there's Wesley, Tiago, James and Phil that are all racing under that banner this season across the 2 splits. So yeah, teammates keeping me just by chatting absolute nothing in the chat somehow just kept me focused.
Oh, fair play. Well, I'm sure your teammates will be very grateful for that shout out, and we're very grateful to have a chat with you, Alex. Congratulations once again on a brilliant set of results on your return to grid, including an overall and a pro win. I mean, you couldn't ask for more. We'll see you at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit next week, but until then, good luck in the Bathurst 12 hours and have a great rest of your evening.
Cheers, appreciate it.
So hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from Alex Fretwell, who absolutely enjoyed himself today by the sounds of things, and talking in particular there about the traction of the Porsche being so key. If he can nail those corner exits and make sure he held the gap at 2 to 3 tenths, he would be safe. And whilst he did sound quite subdued there and downplaying it a little bit, particularly winning race number 2 from starting on pole, to be fair, the hardest part today for him was getting the corner exit right and maintaining the gap. It sounds easy, but it's not, because you've got to be perfect every time. And in race number 1, we saw when he was offline and to get elbowed down the order a little bit, dropping to 17th, having to recover to 15th. Well, fortunate to take that 15th in order to reverse himself to pole position with race 2. But even then, he had to get things right. And well, Alex Fretwell definitely on his return to grid, getting things right here today. And that could really be the summary of his round. But as we get ready to look forward to him at the Nürburgring, can he forget things right there and make it more podiums and wins? Well, we'll have to wait and see. But speaking of wait and seeing, we've waited a bit of time now for our second interview of the day. And the good news is, it's around the corner. But who's it going to be with? We're about to find out. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we go from a winner in the Pro class to a winner in the Elite class, because joining me now in the interview room is none other than Dexterous Motorsports Kamar's Danny Phillips. Danny, good evening to you, and well, how about this? It may have been 10th in race number 1 in the Elite class, but in race 2, you held on to take the class win. I mean, your best result of the season.
A long shot. It's been a long time coming.
Oh, 100%. It's been a long time coming, but you made it absolutely happen, and I mean, the Bathurst circuit in a McLaren that, whilst it didn't look quick on the straights, you looked very quick in the corners. Was that what you were targeting?
No, to be fair, I was just targeting to survive, but the result just came out of nowhere. Really, I was quite surprised myself to find myself second on the grid in class. The first race went better than expected, and then the second race was mostly just about survival. As soon as I can't remember who was even in P1 now because it's just become a blur, but as soon as he made a mistake towards the top of the mountain, seized my opportunity to take P1, and then just prayed that Alex didn't bid it in front of me, but Alex drove brilliantly, holding on to P1 overall.
Well, fair play. Well, you're referring there to Mike Barber when he did have his small mistake coming out of turns 4 and 5, but that's right at the end of the day. Let's come a little bit back to the front. 18th place in qualifying, 14th in the Elite class there. Were you happy with your qualifying session?
No, it was a PB, but I felt like I was going to do better. During the practice session before qualifying, the car felt really good. I felt like I was in the zone, and I was starting to get into good rhythm. And then when it came to qualifying, I just couldn't really hook up a lap that felt like it was representative of the pace I was putting in. So I was quite disappointed really to finish where I did in qualifying.
Oh, fair play. So disappointing qualifying session, and I get the feeling coming out of that, were you sat there perhaps afterwards thinking to yourself, I've made my life now really hard because Bathurst is such a hard place to overtake at?
Yeah, and going into the mountain, you just know, somebody bins it in front of you and you game over. There's nothing happening after that. But thankfully we got through the mountain quite safely on the first lap, and then it becomes a little bit easier after that because everyone starts getting into a bit of a rhythm.
Oh, 100%. The rhythm started to form, like you say, and in race 1, we did see you make some quite significant progress. Of course, there were a few drivers who made mistakes, yourself not included there. I mean, were you keeping an eye on where you were finishing? Were you perhaps thinking, well, I've started 18th, therefore I need to finish 15th? Or was it more just keep going, pick up the places, don't think about where I finish until I get to the end of the race?
Yeah, absolutely. Where I was finishing wasn't even in my mind at all. It was all about just surviving the first race and not starting the second race on the back of the grid. It was just good fortune really that I finished where I did. There was nothing sort of planned in. I wasn't thinking, right, if I gain one more position here, it's going to pay off later on down the line. It was just all about getting through the race until the end and not starting from the back, really.
Oh, fair play. Well, I think the right mentality to have, no doubt about it. And as we did see the race go on, we did naturally get to see you get to a point whereby, in the end, you brought home that 11th place. A very happy one, a top 10 as well in the elite class. And then going into race number 2, it would mean that you'd be starting in, what would be, if my memory serves me correctly, and my maths is good, which is not today, the 5th overall. Were you quite pleased to see yourself on the 3rd row?
Yeah, really pleased. I was kind of kicking myself a little bit that I hadn't thought about it and just, dropped a position or two, because I think it was only pro drivers behind me. But I'll take, from the results I've had this season, I'll take a 3rd row start any day of the week.
And then going into that race, of course, well, knowing that there weren't too many elite drivers in front of you to begin the race, we saw you try to make quite a fast start, and you did in the end get into the 2nd place, but then you spent quite a bit of time chasing Mike Barber, Porsche and McLaren. How was it weighing up the 2 cars and yourself and Mike as drivers?
Oh, it was really difficult. The Porsche is just unreal coming out of the out of any of the slow corners and up against the Macca, which has just got no traction coming out of the slowest corners. It's really difficult. And Mike's a good driver as well. He made it really difficult to get anything on him. Thankfully, he made the mistake, so I managed to capitalise on that. But just trying to get anything on the Porsche when you're coming down them straights, they just don't feel like they're anywhere near long enough.
All play. So the speed, not quite there in the McLaren, but still, you could try and match him in the corners, like you say. But in the end, it did come down to a mistake for what was none other than Mike Barber, which we did see him make at the cutting. But I mean, when mistakes happen on the mountain, it's not really wide enough. But I think at that point, surely your brain must have gone, right, either do it now or it's never happening.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That was my one opportunity, and I knew he was coming after he touched the wall. It was, I knew straight away that he was going to be slower, and all I needed to do really was get alongside him, prove that I wasn't going to back out of it, and just see who had the bigger, who had who was braver to carry on through the corner.
Oh, and in the end, you proved to be slightly braver than your rival. You were able to take it, and in the closing stages, it wasn't over because suddenly Brandon Dyer was right behind you for the final couple laps. I mean, you must have thought as though, okay, this is difficulty turned up to the maximum now.
Yeah, the pressure was already on. And Alex is a really good driver, so it was, I was trying to capitalise and get in front of him and put another car between me and the other elite drivers, which Alex was making it difficult in his own rights. But that pressure from behind was unreal towards the end. Towards maybe I think it was 3 or 4 laps to go. I think I had 2 pro drivers behind me still, so I thought the pressure's off a little bit here. There's a couple of cars that I'm not racing between me and the next position, and then all of a sudden he just appeared in my mirrors, and I'm defending for my life all of a sudden.
And with that defence, we did see you take some of the more classical defence, if you will, of making sure to park the car on the inside into some of the corners. But on that last lap, I mean, we saw Brandon literally put the car left, put it right. I mean, he was literally looking everywhere, and somehow you managed to make it absolutely watertight. I mean, if there was ever a leaking boat, I can imagine you could probably plug all the gaps in the leaking boat, because it just looked so you were offering him no space.
Yeah, I was doing everything I could to just close the door, make the car as wide as I could, give him absolutely no opportunity to stick his car anywhere it shouldn't have been. But yeah, he made it really difficult to defend. So every credit to him. I was really feeling the pressure, and I was just praying that Alex didn't make any kind of mistake, and just urging him to just go on as quick as he could, because it was really difficult to defend against.
Oh, but in the end, you held on, and you've taken your first elite win and a 2nd place overall at that. Your best pair of results of the season so far, and the biggest haul of points you'll take in a single round, I do believe. So with that in mind, I then have to come to the question, which is, has this all been good practice for Bathurst 12 hours this weekend?
Sadly, I'm not driving it, so no.
All fair enough. Well, you've definitely made it matter most when it's matter most, which is key points here today in the championship. But looking ahead to next round at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, what can we expect from you there?
I'm hoping for more of the same. I like the Nürburgring Grand Prix. It's a good circuit, so we'll see what next week brings. Hopefully, I can get enough practice in and we can compete again next week. But hopefully, I'm not back to my normal positions.
Oh, well, to be fair, we'd love to see you back up there going for glory next time out. And just before I do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a mention or a shout out to?
Yeah, shout out to the guys at SimCoach. The training's the one that's got me here, so thank you very much to those guys, especially Marley for the coaching on Monday night. And also to my teammates in DXC, so thank you very much to all of them.
Well, Danny, we do need to say a big thank you to you for joining me in the interview this evening and telling us about what was an absolutely epic drive to your first elite win of the season. Well deserved. We look forward to plenty more in Germany in a week's time. But until then, savour the moment, enjoy it, and have a great rest of your evening.
Cheers, Paul.
So hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from a very happy but also very relieved Danny Phillips of Dexterous Motorsports Quamar. Today, it didn't quite go right in qualifying. He mentioned that a personal best, but he was not happy with the lap. He knew there was more, and it made his races uphill, particularly in race number 1, but he committed to his bit and managed to make sure he finished well inside that top 15. But he wasn't focusing on where he finished, although admitting there that in retrospect, he was hoping that perhaps, in fact, he should have perhaps looked back at that grid and thought to himself, actually, what if I drop some places to the pros around me? I could be starting in 15th and therefore on pole for race number 2. But still, he decided not to, and in race 2, we got to see this epic drive from him to battle his way past Mike Barber in the mid-stage of the race, and then it was all about holding off Brandon Dyer to the very end, which was just able to do so. And we fancy his chances at the Nürburgring in a week's time. We look forward to seeing what he can do there. And I'll tell you one thing, if he's not able to repeat it anymore this season, he's definitely earned a result right now that will go down in the Hall of Fame. There's no doubt about that. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, on to our next interview. We'll be right back for interview number 3. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we now head back to the pro class, and as we do, joining me now in the interview room is none other than the Access Sport wide driver of Matthew Croft. Good evening to you, Matt. What a changing day you've had today. Qualifying looked okay. Race number 1 went quite well, but you just fell short of the inverted grid. And race number 2, things went a bit backwards.
Yeah, literally backwards. Not gonna lie, I didn't get the result I wanted, but that was one of the most fun races I've had so far this season, from the Thursday, Sunday season. It was just so fun. The overtakes and the battle with the elite guys. It was just, yeah, I didn't get the result, but God, it was fun.
Well, to be fair, fun's what it's all about at the end of the day. Trophies and that aside, if you're having a good time out there, who can complain? As we do see the replay footage of you having the brush of the wall before Montpellier Park in race number 2. But we'll come to that shortly. Let's start with qualifying. 23rd overall, 9th in class. We saw it was very tight outside of the top 3 in the qualifying session. Was that your observation of it, or do you feel as though you should have been up there with them?
I should have done a lot better. I did, what was it, 023 or an 021, I think it was. Practice, I was in more like the 1.7, 1.6s. So I know I had the pace to do it. I just couldn't link it up together. I'd do the mountain perfect and then come to the bottom hairpin and muck that up, or, reverse. I just kept messing one small part of it up. I couldn't link it all up together, or I'd push too hard and I clip the wall, get a small bit of damage, and be like, right, I've got to reset because the car won't be fast enough on the straights. Now I've got a tiny bit of damage. So I just constantly just little bits here and there, and just couldn't quite line it up. I think I could have been a lot further up, if I'm honest, because I mean, in the race, I well and truly had pace to stay with some of the elite guys, so I had pace there in the race. So if I'm on my own in quali, I should be able to do it. I just didn't get lucky this time. I'm notoriously not very good at qualifying, if I'm honest, but it is what it is. It's a race that counts. That didn't go very well either, to be fair.
Well, to be fair, like you say, it's the race that counts. That's where the points are made. And whilst you may not have got yourself into the top 15 in race number 1, coming to that point of having fun out there, we did see you make quite a bit of progress in race number 1. But how was it for making progress? Because, of course, Bathurst is not a wide circuit. The only places you can overtake really are the straights. But, of course, you did pick the right weapon for that. 6.3 litres of V8 muscle.
Yeah, but she is a little bit lively at the top of the mountain, I'm not going to lie. I've been doing a fair bit of practice this week because I've got Sunday's race as well. So I've plenty crashing to get to where I am today, but it needs to change. You need to change that gear really early up the mountain, or else it just wants to kill you on the top end. It just wants to spin over because of the amount of torque in it. It is fantastic. I really am enjoying the Merc. I was on the fence. I was like, do I change to like the Aston Martin or something like a very similar car, but turns in a bit better, a bit safer. I was like, nah, sod it. I'll just stick to this and really put some practice in. And yeah, it behaved. But as for overtakes, it's so difficult. Unless somebody makes a mistake and you can really just dive bomb and get in there, there's only really 3 or 4 places that you can do a sensible overtake. If you don't want to do a sensible one, just do a sketchy one and hope you both work together for it.
Oh, indeed. And in the end, picking the sensible place is definitely where the ground's going to be made. But we did see you inch your way forward gradually. But I suspect come the end of race number 1, you might have looked down and seen where you finished and thought to yourself, if only I got that one last place. I think it was only about a second up the road.
Oh mate, honestly, it wasn't at the end of the race when I realised. It was about halfway through, and I'm like, I'm getting him. Alex is he's gonna be behind me. I'm having him. And he just kept making that push so wide. And you know what the push is like? Comes out of corners, it squats and goes. So on the straights, I'm like, just need to get a good exit. Just need to get a good exit. And every time the Porsche just kept creeping ahead. I was like, damn it. I got next to him, turn 3, turn 4 a couple of times, but on the outside, just nothing you can do about it. It's just he was a little bit slow on the downward part of Skylight, whatever it's called at the top. He was just a little bit early on the brakes. I'm thinking, do I do something there? And if you do something there, it's just going to be a mess. So I chose to be sensible, try beat him, but I had another problem towards the end of the first race. Is we were battling, and then behind me I saw Hayden Miller coming up, and I was like, you know what, Hayden's not having 15th. If I can't have it, he's not having it. So I was wanted to hold him back there, but luckily he didn't get to us till like the last corner, so we're pretty safe there. But yeah, Alex did well to hold me back. He did really well, and he paid for it in the next race. He got the win. Fair play to him. Absolutely fantastic race from him.
Well, fair play. Well, only one of you could take 15th place, and it did go Alex's way. And what it meant was, of course, race number 2 was about you trying to move forward, albeit, unfortunately, you mentioned a few moments ago, end up more backwards than forwards. What happened?
Oh, I'm not going to lie, I was too busy laughing and having such a good time. I probably wasn't concentrating, because I think it was lap 5. I had like Hayden Miller in front of me, I had Ryan in front of me, a few of the other elite guys in front of me, and it was just chaos. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to send it in. I got like 3 or 4 of them in one lap, and I was just laughing like mad. It was so fun. You must have had a fair bit to talk about at that point. Trust me, it was so fun. And I think I lost a bit of concentration on the 6th lap. I was just like smiling from ear to ear, and simple corner as well, a simple corner coming out of it, and it stepped a bit, which I'd usually just correct it and it'd be all right, but the back left just tapped the wall, bent the wheel, and I was like, yeah, I can carry on. I've bent the wheel a couple of times and it's been fine. And then you come back up the mountain the next lap with a bent wheel, and it's like, oh, it's not fine, it's trying to kill me. And then then ruined the car, come in, repaired it, went back out again. As I said, I'm not that bothered about the result, because I just had so much fun battling the elite guys.
Oh, absolutely fair. I mean, having all the fun, even with the wheel was bent or not. And, well, we got to see in the end take home that 26th, 14th in class. So some points being brought along with your performance in race number 1. But, of course, the fun that was had today, can we expect you to have even more fun next week at the Nürburgring?
Oh, it's raining as well. Depends if the car behaves, because it goes one way or the other for me. It's like I'm either really good in the rain or really bad. So VIR was just a write-off. I don't know why the Merc was like, not today. It was really greasy conditions, but I mean Daytona in the Sunday League, I won that race, and that was monsoon weather. So I can drive in the rain. It just depends on what type. I think greasy, the Merc is a bit sketchy, but torrential. I seem to be doing all right, which is strange because my inputs are really heavy and I'm not a gentle person when it comes to the steering wheel. But yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be nice to come back up there and in the Nürburgring. I've not actually raced the track on iRacing before, so I need to do a little bit of practice. But it's a luxury of doing the Thursday and the Sunday at the moment. Is I get plenty of practice and I get to race it on both days. So I'm back at Bathurst on Sunday.
Oh, fair play. Well, we definitely look forward to seeing you out there next week at the Nürburgring, and also on the grid for the Sunday series hosted by UK Sim Racing. But, Matthew, just before we do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast tonight?
Just the team, the Axis team, as per usual, just absolutely fantastic guys. We're all kitted up for the 12-hour on Saturday. Plenty of practice, talking about setups, talking about which cars we prefer, and we do that every week for the league as well. So if there's anyone out there that's either a privateer or looking for a really decent bunch of guys, if you're looking for a team, hit us up. We're always welcome to, always wanted to take people on and make them part of the team, and we find it's a fantastic community, as well as the SRI community is absolutely fabulous. Since joining it, a couple of years ago or a year ago, it's just I've met so many good people and made some good friends. It's if anyone wants to get into iRacing or get into any sort of league racing, come down to SRI. It's fantastic. And Paul, you're all right as well. So
Oh, cheeky, cheeky. I love it. Well, in fact, given the fact that you guys are racing in the 12-hour, if anybody wanted to catch your perspective, are you guys streaming it? And if so, where can we catch it?
Yeah. So I'll be streaming on my Twitch. I stream pretty much most races, if I'm honest. So yeah, I'll be streaming on my Twitch. So if anyone wants to watch a full race, I'll have it on for the full 12 hours, like most of the endurances. Yeah, hop in the chat, come say hello, and yeah, enjoy it.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Matthew, we'll leave you there, and congratulations on having so much fun out there today. The results may not have been what you wanted, but the fun out there was definitely worth it, and that's what we love to hear. We'll see you in the Sunday series and also next week in Germany at the Nürburgring. But until then,
Yeah.
good luck in the 12 hours of Bathurst.
Cheers, fella. Have a good one.
You too. So hearing there from a very happy Matthew Croft, he's always a gentleman, is he not? And well, an absolute advocate of racing with Access Sim Sport, but also being part of the SimRacing International community. We couldn't ask for a better endorsement, to be honest. And I can assure you he wasn't paid to say that, ladies and gentlemen. But as our number 19 driver said today, the results, less a concern. What was concern was about having fun. He had plenty of that, particularly scrapping with the elite drivers in race number 1. And will find himself all the way down the order to then make his way up the order from qualifying to race number 1's conclusion, but gutted the fact he couldn't quite steal the 15th place away from Alex Fretwell, which meant he missed out on that top 15 inversion for pole position in race number 2. Still, race number 2 didn't quite work out with that spin, and one of the easier places of the circuit to make progress, but still, again, got himself back out there and carried on fighting, and that's what we always love about Matthew Croft. He never gives up until the car's given up on him, and while at the Nürburgring, in those mixed conditions, will he be able to tame the German beast at a beastly German circuit? We'll have to find out in a week's time. With that, ladies and gents, we've got one more interview to come, and well, we're going to step away for a brief moment, and then we'll be back for our final interview of the day. And so, ladies and gentlemen, to keep things balanced, we've had 2 pro interviews. Let's have a second and final elite interview, because joining me now in the interview room is none other than Ryan Nickerson. Good evening to you, Ryan. And well, what a challenging day it's been for yourself, because on paper, if you look at the overall positions, 9th in qualifying, 3rd in race 1, and 11th in race number 2, it doesn't sound too bad. It sounds really good. But of course, a podium in race number 1 in the class, and in 8th place finishes in both other parts of the day. Are you happy with today? Do you feel as though there was more out there? How do you feel?
Honestly, today went better than I thought. In qualifying, I was struggling. Crazy traffic in qualifying. So I did not think I was going to get the podium in race 1. So that was a pleasant surprise. And then in race 2, just couldn't get around Hayden. Him and me were battling the whole time. But no, I am stoked with the results. Plenty of points gained in the championship on my rivals. So overall, pretty good.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's a really positive way to look at it. And coming into qualifying for a brief moment, you mentioned there about the traffic situation. Now, of course, raced on public roads today, but nobody respecting the public speed limits, no doubt about it. But where did you find the traffic? Was it over the mountain you just kept coming up against cars, or elsewhere?
Yeah, it was really funny. You get a lap, and then you'd warm up, and then you'd look, and you see, oh, plenty of clean air before you start the lap, and then you take turn 1, and then all of a sudden, everyone decides, oh, I gotta go as well. And so that was the funny part, is you take turn 1, and then there'd be just a whole line of cars. So it was definitely in the mountain part. Yeah, so that was a little bit challenging to try and get a lap, like a perfect lap. But yeah.
Oh, well, definitely challenging, but still, rose to the challenge in the end, got that 9th place, and in race number 1, we saw you come through the field quite quickly, albeit there were a couple incidents up front, but still, that's all part of the racing, and a podium in the end. I mean, it looked to be an absolute golden drive from yourself.
Yeah, race 1, like, that was it was the perfect scenario. You know, I got a couple moves early, which is needed to do. Very challenging track to overtake on. So I knew I had to make some early moves, and then luckily a few incidents up ahead, which just let me get into that 3rd spot. And then the rest of it was defending Reese, 5/10s behind me for, like, I think 10 laps. But yeah, like it was just almost as perfect as it could have been.
Oh, well, as perfect as could be in the end, and able to make your way onto that podium in a Ferrari. And I do have to ask, obviously, yourself and also your teammate Fotis have moved from the McLaren to the Ferrari. You do look so much more comfortable in this car. Was that the reason for the change, or is it just something that's developed over time?
We knew, at least I knew, we had to make a change with the car because the McLaren, it's just not good enough. And so, yeah, it's a really hilarious story. I actually asked ChatGPT what car would be the best moving forward because I knew we needed some quality pace because our race pace was there, and that is the car that I recommended, and so I just went with it.
Well, fair play. Well, ChatGPT definitely seems to have recommended you on the right car because things have been moving in the right direction. Race number 2 then, of course, starting in what would have been 13th place for the top 15 inversion. A bit more of a subdued race by comparison there. Why couldn't you make as much progress in race 2?
Well, it's because, well, first I had Hayden, and like everyone that was faster than me was behind me to start, and then I think it was 4 wide at the beginning. It was like ridiculous, but I just didn't have the pace to pass them and then move on my own. So I was kind of stuck behind them, and then at the end I told Hayden, you know, he can just push. I'm not going to attack him because I wanted to catch up to the front group. But yeah, very challenging. I just did not have the pace to get close enough to make a send into like one of the corners. So.
All fair play. Well, in the end, trying to work with him to a degree, and we did see the two of you gradually make a little bit of progression as time went on in the race, and in the end bringing on home what was an 8th place in class. I mean, it looked as though whilst it perhaps wasn't as entertaining compared to race done one, still some solid points, and you've left Bathurst now probably thinking to yourself that you're gaining ground in the championship and the results can only continue to get better.
Yeah, this week was almost too perfect. It's kind of making me a little nervous about next week, but I think I think 3 of my rivals crashed out like in either race 1 or race 2. And so, really huge momentum to moving into, I think it's Nürburgring next week, right?
100%.
Yeah, so we're going to take Virginia, we're going to take Bathurst, and we're just going to keep this hype train going, hopefully.
Oh, I love it. I really like the vibe you're giving me right now with the hype train. And I do have to ask, are you planning to take part in the Bathurst 12 hours this weekend?
Yeah, it's a funny story. So, Fotis, he's busy, so I was like, I'll get my other teammate. He's also busy, but not to the end. So I'll have to be doing, I think, 5 hours in a row at the beginning. But yeah, I will be competing.
Goodness me, this sounds as though this is more torture than pleasure, but still, credit to you where it's due. If you're going to go all in for it, well, we wish you the best luck with it. And if anybody, are you planning to stream it at all? Because if so, where could we catch you on board?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitch. I normally stream today's race and any race I do. Am I supposed to like say my Twitch?
Yep, go for it.
Okay, so it's kind of hard to say. So it's OGN3LLY. Yeah. It's the same as my Discord.
All fair play. Well, I'm sure also when the Bathurst 12 hours comes around the weekend, it will be allowing drivers to post their onboard perspectives in the SimRacing International Discord. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to catch the onboard of Ryan Nickerson as he attempts to at least the opening 5 hours of proving himself to be the king of the mountain at the weekend, now you know where to catch him on Twitch. But as we get ready to let you go, Ryan, is there anyone else you'd like to give a shout out to on the broadcast?
Oh yeah. Shout out to Fotis. That's my man right there. Every week, you know, we're doing this, we're practicing together, making sure we're both at our top performance. And he does actually have a message he wanted me to say. He said to Reese, he asked you to slow down.
Oh, goodness me. Well, message being passed on there by Fotis. Well, with that, Ryan, we'll leave it there. Congratulations, Day, on an absolutely brilliant run of results, keeping that momentum going, keeping the hype train going. We hope to see the train continue to choo its way along at the Nürburgring. But until then, my friend, have a lovely rest of your evening.
Thank you so much. You too.
Oh, goodness me, ladies and gentlemen. Ryan Nickerson, what a character. What a personality from Split Strat Esports. And to be fair to him, I mean, can you complain? After the epic drive at VIR last time out, albeit, of course, when we interviewed him there, he was very much of two sides of a coin. One part of him very happy with his first podium of the season. The other part of him gutted at missing out on second, throwing that away in a way. But here today, another third place and an eighth as well. It's not quite the perfect haul of points to perhaps make it a whole set of third place points, but it's good. He's riding that momentum, and the fact that he's so happy about the way things are going, even though he did spend quite a bit of time fighting with Hayden Miller in race number 2 here and couldn't quite move forward the way he wanted to, but you can understand the Split Strat Esports driver right now really in the zone, and if he can keep this up where his rivals particularly lose momentum today, we can understand why. He's really riding the wave and hoping this continues. He may even be able to make his way into the top 3 before the end of the season. Albeit got a bit elbows out there, as we did see in the replay footage, battling there with none other than Miller and also what was Mark Hutchinson. But in the end, finishing strong and looking forward to Nürburgring. And we look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do in the 3 rounds that remain. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we wrap up our interviews for today. And let's give you a quick recap of who we've spoken to. And, well, we've had an absolutely brilliant set of 4 interviews today. And we started, of course, in the Pro class with Alex Fretwell for RLH. Also, 9 Pegasus Panther. That's his official team now. We'll get that updated if we can before the next broadcast. With his absolutely brilliant drive to 15th place in race 1 that guaranteed him the chance of what would be the win in race number 2. And he did not throw it away and became our first Pro driver to take an overall win this season. Then we spoke to Danny Phillips in the Elite class for Dexterous Motorsports Kumar, who in the end wasn't too happy about his qualifying performance, but was very happy with his race 1 performance and what it translated to, which was his first elite win of the season in race number 2. Then we came back to the Pro class. It was Matthew Croft who we spoke to, and we got to hear from the ex-System Sport wide driver who had plenty of fun out there, regardless of the result. And then we just spoke to Ryan Nickerson from Split Strat Esports, the elite driver there, absolutely riding away with the momentum. And I don't think anything can right now take it away from him. And we're definitely looking forward to the Nürburgring as well. Congratulations to them all on their performances, and thank you to them all for joining me in the interview room. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know how you can get on the grid at SimRacing International for our ongoing and upcoming series, well, for all that and more, first and foremost, do join our official Discord. Invite link available at the bottom of the screen there. And if you join today, you can get into the beating heart of the community and find out what's going on, and even get yourself on the grid for any of our 4 ongoing series. Reading from left to right, of course, we do have our GT3 Championship in its 11th season, which you've been tuning into today on Thursday evenings with 2 splits consisting of 60 drivers each, making up a grand total of 120 drivers. If you're more of a Sunday GT3 enthusiast, well, of course, you've got our UK SimRacing community hosted series that runs every Sunday evening in its 17th season, or perhaps you're a bit more of a classical GT enthusiast. No, we're not talking quite about the GT1 machines, the historical cars, but we are talking about cars now that are considered to be historic, the GTEs. We do have our maiden season that's still ongoing. That's on Friday evenings, and it's been proving highly popular and has brought some big superstars from the GTE racing to its very grid. But if you want something a lot more casual, perhaps you're very new to the grid or just wanting to dip your toes into league racing, well, of course, we do have our free to join practice league, which does run on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. So whatever the weather, whatever the day, there's plenty of racing going on at SimRacing International, and we'd love for you to join the grid and potentially stay. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include Carmate, Modern Technology, the GP2 Group, and lastly, the Motorsport UK's esports division, because they've recognised us a recommended community here at SimRacing International, and we're very grateful for that recognition, and long may it continue throughout 2026 and onwards. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we must now move onwards, because today we've been racing at Bathurst, but where are we next time out? Well, we make our way to Germany, to the foot of the Eiffel Mountains, but we're not racing over them. It's not quite the Nordschleife. We're going to be racing on the Grosser Preisstrecke, or the GP circuit, and there we'll be racing at the full-on Grand Prix circuit with slow version of the Vidal chicane, and you can catch all the racing action from round number 8 on Thursday the 26th of February 2026 as we see the second month of this year at a close. But what exactly are the stories that have come out of Bathurst today? Well, firstly, nobody, none of the favourites across our elite classes and also our pro classes have been able to quite nail all the points, and therefore it means that championship leads will be stalling. And also we've seen some unexpected results, including Alex Fretwell's win in race number 2 overall in pro, and also none other than the brilliant result for none other than what was Danny Phillips taking the elite win there. So it's all going to be shaken and slightly stirred the pot going into round number 8, but who can make sense of it all and come up with the winning recipe? We'll find out then. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, we've been SimRacing International. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.